hits in the late 50s and 60s, including Wake Up Little Susie and Cathy's Clown. Graham Nash of The Hollies says his band were hugely influenced by them.
We went to a dance on a Saturday night and Bye Bye Love by the Everly Brothers came on, and it stopped us in our tracks. And ever since that moment, I've wanted to make music that made me feel like that record made me feel that night.
Parts of England, Scotland and Northern Ireland are braced for more heavy rain after a powerful storm flooded hundreds of homes and many businesses in coastal areas. Tom Mansell is in charge of RNLI's flood rescue teams in the southwest.
We are still concerned about coastal flooding. The tides are still big. We're experiencing fairly severe weather at the moment, and the forecast is for the same for a couple of days. So although the tides will be easing off after today, we are still concerned about coastal areas.
4 severe flood warnings remain in place, with the main area of risk the River Severn in Gloucestershire. Meanwhile, an 18-year-old who was last seen walking towards a coastal path in Devon remains missing. A Walsall man's been charged with attempting to hire a hitman to murder his ex-wife in America. William Wallace, who now lives in California's Orange County, was arrested following an undercover police operation just before Christmas. Prosecutors say it followed a custody dispute over their daughter. A report suggests the number of first-time buyers went up by an estimated 22% last year. The Halifax First-Time Buyer Review says it's the largest annual increase since 2001 and means around 265,000 people made it onto the property ladder last year. Suggestions on where Centro might make cuts are welcomed at a public meeting in Solihull today, as the company needs to save £14 million. Children's fairs and the Ring and Ride service could be targeted. Mark Langford is from Centro.
It will be taken into account when we make the final decision. It's a very painful place to be in. Unfortunately, we have had to launch this process because of the financial constraints which we're facing.
People can go and have their say at Mel Square in Solihull from now until 3 o'clock this afternoon. For the first time, the government's published guidance to be sent to every local authority in England to encourage councils to empty people's bins every week. The local government secretary, Eric Pickles, says fortnightly collections are balmy. Weather-wise, quite a wet morning out there, but rain will clear to the north by late morning and scattered showers and sunny spells this afternoon. Highs of 8 degrees Celsius, that's 46 degrees Fahrenheit. Tonight, showers will die out overnight, leaving clear spells, but temperatures will drop close to freezing. BBC WM 95.6 News. There's more online at bbc.co.uk/WM.
Have your say.
Across the West Midlands, call 08453 00 9956.
BBC WM 95.6.
Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC WM. Happy New Year and all that. But doesn't it seem like a lifetime ago, for goodness sakes? Lots to talk about this morning. I've gone right off Molly. I've gone right off her. She doesn't like the Kinks. One of the finest. Let me see. I would put the Kinks in the top 4 British rock bands of all time. Way above the Rolling Stones, for goodness sakes. She doesn't like the Kinks. The Kinks may be getting back together. We'll talk about that a bit later on. You can give me a call on that and any of the things we're talking about. Phone numbers and details coming along. You heard the story there in the news with Liz as well about wheelie bins. Now, I know, it's not very sexy, it's not very exciting, but I know from past experience that you, and me to a certain extent, love talking about wheelie bins and bin collections and all those kind of things. Is it an age thing? Is it now that I'm 40 I enjoy moaning? I say talking, it's moaning, isn't it? Moaning about bins and bin collections and the rubbish men and what they leave behind and, the bin lid was left a little bit open so they didn't take it but they stuck a sticker on. We'll talk about that a bit later on. But the first thing this morning, prisoners. Prisoners. Now, really keen to talk to you this morning if you've been in prison, because it's very easy, isn't it, for people to say, we should make prison tougher. We should make prison softer. We should... I've never been to prison. I've got no idea. So if you've been to prison, could you give me a call, 08453 00 9956, and let me know what it was like? How tough was it? Is it true about the PlayStations in the prison cells? Does that actually happen? Well, the reason that we're talking about it today is because prisoners at a Wolverhampton prison are demanding they be fed bigger meals. The campaign by inmates at HMP Featherstone was revealed this week in an annual report into the jail, which produces more than 700,000 meals a year. Yes, a year. I nearly said a week. That would be a lot, wouldn't it? Oh, blimey. Prison service officials insist inmates are served a wide-ranging menu, including 5 portions of fruit and vegetables a day, and special dishes created for events such as Ramadan, Chinese New Year, and British Pride Week. Well, this morning, I want to know what you think. Do you think prisoners should get bigger and better meals? One local MP has described the complaint as hard to swallow, yeah, like it, and urged prisoners to get a job inside to pay for their own meals. And to remember, it's struggling taxpayers on the other side of the prison gates who are picking up the bill for their food. Lots to talk about here. In this, and I really do need the insight of someone who has served time in prison for whatever it may be. We're going to get a guest later on who's been to prison, but I always find these things work better if you call in with your real experiences of what prison life was like. So 08453 009956 if you've been in prison. But it's not just excluded to ex-cons. Why do they call it doing bird? Anyone? 81333, start your text WM if you know. What do you think? Should prison be a place for punishment, or should it be a place for rehabilitation? Should prisoners be able to have more say over the cuisine they're served? 08453 009956 81333, start your text WM. You can email me as well. I'll give you the email address in a bit. But before that, I spoke to Gavin Williamson just before the show. He's the Conservative MP for South Staffordshire. This is what he had to say.
Well, there's nothing wrong with making sure that prisoners all have, and it's absolutely correct to make sure prisoners have the right diet and everything else, but I think the idea that prisoners suddenly start demanding bigger portions and everyone jumps to attention is a little bit ridiculous. And I think people find this, excuse the pun, but a little bit hard to swallow when we're paying for all of this.
And is that what it's all about for you, the protecting the taxpayer's purse?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And we've got to remember that, it is, yes, of course, about protecting the taxpayer's purse, but it's also remembering the fact that actually, prisons aren't hotels. They aren't there to sort of, bend to every whim of the inmates. Actually, it's there as a form of punishment. And actually, prisons make sure that they provide a balanced, nutritious diet. They make sure that the meals are there have the right number of calories. And the idea that suddenly prisons should be jumping to attention at the demands of inmates, I don't think is actually right, or the right message that we should be sending out.
But if prisoners feel they aren't being catered for, they aren't getting the size portions they need, we have to listen to that, don't we?
Well, the best will in the world, I'm not sure if you necessarily always do. What the prisons have got to provide is a nutritious meal that makes sure that people keep in the very best of health. I don't think prisons are there running a sort of 5-star restaurant looking to make sure that, every single one of their customers feels absolutely satisfied with everything they do. Yes, they've got to be providing a good meal. Yes, they've got to be making sure it's nutritious and make sure that prisoners have a balanced diet. These are all absolutely, absolutely vital, which all prisons do. But, people can't walk out of prison and go and shop somewhere else, shall we say. And at the end of the day, this is taxpayers' money. And the idea that suddenly prisoners demand one thing and then prisons actually have to start providing it, I don't actually think is right. It costs an absolute fortune to keep people in prisons. And the idea that we have to heap on even more expense onto the taxpayer, you, me, all your listeners who are paying for this, just because prisoners want it, I'm not sure if that's right.
Interesting you mentioned that prison is about punishment. I was always brought up to believe it was primarily about rehabilitation. And if we treated prisoners better, with better food, with bigger portions, wouldn't that go some way towards rehabilitation?
You're right that prison, of course, is about rehabilitation, but also it is about punishment. If someone has done something dreadful, someone has, if you've got someone who has murdered someone or someone who has mugged someone, robbed someone, isn't it right that they're punished for a crime that they do? But isn't it also right that we try and do everything we can do to get them back onto the straight and narrow? It's got to be a balance of the two. But prisons shouldn't ever be seen as a soft option. Prisons shouldn't ever be seen as a hotel. I get so many constituents who are angry at me when they hear about the fact that prisoners have some Xboxes in their...
is that true, Gavin, that they have Xboxes and PlayStations, or is that a myth?
Sadly, it is true. It has been reduced, and in the past, people were able to have, a whole range of DVDs. But increasingly, the government is cracking down on this and creating what I'd call a more Spartan regime. And this is something that is to be welcomed. But what we've got to do is get the balance right between making sure that people, are properly cared for when they're in prison. That's totally understandable. That's absolutely what we want to see. Making sure they get the education, the support to get them back on the straight and narrow, and to make sure that when they leave prison, they can go and get a job and start contributing to society. But I don't want to see prisons as run as some soft option. We're not running hotels here. It is about rehabilitation, but it's also making sure that people realise that they've done something wrong and they're paying a price for it.
Well, they will realise that because they've lost their liberty, whether they've got Xboxes in their cell or not. They have lost their liberty, and I don't know if I quite buy into. I've spoken to a few prisoners who say that this myth about prisons being like a holiday camp is just that. It's a myth. If we can do something to lighten their spirit, perhaps, and show them that there is another way, if it's a small thing, like giving them bigger meals, we can't have them going hungry, can we?
Well, I think that's maybe... no one's ever said that anyone is going hungry, and I think that when you see the reports, there's never been any accusations that the prisons haven't been giving people enough. The simple reality is that the prisoners have requested more. Prisoners have a choice of what they want to eat when they're in their prison cells. Indeed, in some prisons, they even have electronic devices where they can make their menu selection from their actual wings. So, it's not about prisoners not getting, getting a totally raw deal. The fact is there is choice there. And maybe actually, if people want bigger proportions, that should be rewarded, linked to sort of what they're doing in the prison as to whether there is exceptionally good behaviour. But I don't think that just because a few prisoners demand ever bigger portions, that the prison should always bend to that will. Maybe it should be linked with performance of how they're going about their rehabilitation. But the simple reality is every single prison is duty-bound to give nutritious, good meals that are perfectly adequate for every single prisoner, and that's what prisons do, every single one of them. And I just think it's sometimes a slippery slope that if prisons start bending to the will of every single inmate who starts asking and demanding different things of those prisons.
Two final things, Gavin. Are you suggesting then that prisoners should be rewarded for good behaviour? For example, if they don't get into trouble for a month, they can order a Domino's, and if it's 2 months, they can get the 5-star meal. Is that kind of what you're hinting at?
I certainly would never be suggesting anything like that. I was thinking maybe a slight extra helping of custard.
Gosh.
It's certainly not sort of the idea of ordering out. I think that's the most disgusting idea. You rightly pointed out, key element of prison life is about the deprivation of liberty, but it is about actually making sure that prisoners get, the training and the rehabilitation. But already there is, within every prison, there is a system of recognition of the fact that there is prisoners who behave well, maybe ultimately get better cells, they maybe get sort of better privileges, there's slightly less monitoring of them, they maybe have their own sort of private shower or something along those lines. These are all steps that, are trying to encourage good behaviour, and that sort of system, I think, can work well within prisons. But I think it's the principle. We all pay a vast amount of money to keep prisoners behind bars. We pay a vast amount of money to make sure that prisoners get the right training and the right rehabilitation so they don't go back into prisons after. When people are, right across the country, have to tighten their belts, have to make sure they do very best to afford all the things that they want. The idea that, some prisoners are able to just demand bigger portions and then get bigger portions just because they want it. I think that sort of doesn't always appeal to absolutely everyone, and I think people think this is a little bit wrong.
Well, that's Gavin Williamson, Conservative MP. For South Staffordshire. We'll talk more about that in a second, but now it's 9:16. Let's get the latest travel news now. Here's Liz Saul.
Thank you very much. Good morning. The M6 going south is blocked currently. Long delays now because of an accident closing the carriageway between 10A and 10, the M54 to the Wolverhampton and Walsall turn. The congestion is now back past junction 11 for Cannock. Initially, 2 lanes were shut and you could have squeezed through, but as I say, it's blocked completely now, so you're facing lengthy delays. The other end of things, the M69 heading towards the M6 interchange still has a lane out because of an accident there. We're getting reports of some sort of traffic problem in the Kings Bromley area on Yoxall Road at the junction with Orrewas Road. Police tell us they are on the way to the scene. It's looking rather soggy still in places this morning. A lot of flooding around in Wolverhampton. Furnace Grange Road is shut at the A454 Bridge North Road, and in Oddingley Green Lane remains closed between Smite Lane and Plough Lane. If you can update us, 08453 002288.
Pete Morgan at breakfast.
On Friday's programme, we heard about the residents being asked for directions by prisoners who'd just been released from jail.
How bad is this problem now?
There's up to 3,000 prisoners here, and we do get some prisoners who have got no transport home, and some of the residents are getting a bit intimidated when they're waiting for the buses with these ex-prisoners.
I asked you whether you still shop at Debenhams after the store issued a profits warning.
They seem to keep putting the load of rubbish out that they don't sell, and they look like they're old stock.
It's all down to online now. I think that's the way things are going now.
Pete Morgan at breakfast.
I'm back Monday morning at 6 for a brand new week.
On BBC WM 95.6.
Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC WM 95.6, here every Saturday morning between 9 and 12. Just before the travel with Liz, you heard me talking to Gavin Williamson, Conservative MP for South Staffordshire. He is dead against this idea that prisoners should be fed bigger and better meals. The reason we're talking about this is because prisoners at a Wolverhampton prison are demanding that they get better food. Now, I've never been to prison. I have no idea what the food is like. Any good? If you've been, do give me a call, 08453 009956. And what do you think? Do you agree with what Gavin Williamson had to say? Do you think prisons should be tougher? Is it true? Is it true about Xboxes and DVDs in their cell? 08453 009956. Well, someone who may be able to answer some of those questions is John on the M40. Morning, John.
Good morning, John.
Well, I'm Ian, you're John, don't worry. Now, listen, you served time in prison. How long were you in prison for?
I'm sorry, I finished 4 months ago. I served a 31-year sentence. So I think I can say with some experience what the prison food's like.
Am I allowed to ask what you spent 30-odd years in prison for? Because yes, you've done something very naughty, haven't you?
I didn't think it was so naughty, but the judge did. But I was convicted for drug smuggling. I put some cocaine in my aircraft and flew it back, and they didn't like that, you know. And but what it was I had quite a large business. But we're getting off the subject there. I had a large business with a lot of assets, and basically built the case up so it sounded far more than it was, so that it could take the legitimate assets that I had. But
hang on, we will get back to the topic in a second. Just one final question, if you don't mind, because I'm fascinated. You say it was just a bit of cocaine. It wasn't a couple of wraps, was it? Forget 30 years. It must have been a substantial amount.
Kilos.
Flipping heck! How much is that worth?
You buy it abroad, you know, in Rotterdam there for about 1.5 million.
And over here, what would it have been worth? Double that?
No, not double. You hear if I on the news, you'll hear that somebody's been caught with a kilo of cocaine and it's worth £100,000.
Yeah.
Well, it never is worth £100,000 until it goes down. The kilo will be split into ounces, the ounces into grams, you know, and then it's cut, and then it's worth £100,000. But In reality, that's not the case. Case.
Now, John, prison food, what's it like?
Very stodgy. Everything's bulked up by vegetables. You won't go hungry in prison. I'm not here to knock prison or knock the system. I'll just tell you exactly what it's like and straight down the line. You won't go hungry, but what a lot of prisoners do is supplement the food from the canteen. So from your earnings, you can buy tuna and noodles and the other things. It's like a mini shop. But in order to purchase those, you really need to have money sent in from your family, because I don't know if you know, but the average wage in prison is £10 a week. You pay £1 then for your TV, so you're left with, on average, £9 a week. Well, let's be honest. How far does £9 go?
So you're saying you're well fed, there was plenty of food. Why are these prisoners then in Wolverhampton saying they want bigger and better meals?
No, I never said I was well fed.
Oh.
I said I was fed and I wouldn't go hungry.
Okay.
There's loads of carrots and loads of spuds and loads of bread, if that's what you want. But your actual main ingredients, your main meal.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know how many grams of protein you're supposed to have in a meal. But you've seen the soup. Let's say a soup ladle. You can imagine a soup ladle. What they do, they have a special ladle that's for that particular. Just say it's 50 grams of curry. Meat in a curry.
Yeah.
Well, they put this ladle in the curry, and that's what you get.
Why should prisoners get more, John? You've done bad things. You were smuggling drugs. It could have ended up with someone dying as a result of your actions. Murderers are in there, all kinds of naughty people. Why should they get better food?
Because the punishment is the loss of your liberty. And it just doesn't go there. I could be on for hours explaining. Look, prisoners, we've done wrong. I understand that completely and utterly. And we need punishing, as society says. But you've got to understand that not everyone inside's doing a 30-year sentence like me or in for murder or rape. The vast majority of prisoners are doing short sentences. And it can be for fines, driving offences.
But still, they've broken the law. They've defrauded people. They have stolen from people or the state. They deserve punishment, don't they?
Yeah, but honestly, Ian, the punishment is when that door locks. And if you have a problem at home, there's nothing you can do about it at all. And then
Is it true about Xboxes in your cells and DVDs and things like that?
I've never seen an Xbox.
PlayStation?
But yeah, I've got to say I did have a PlayStation 1 and then a PlayStation 2. But
now, John.
Let me just qualify that, please. A PlayStation 2. When did they go out? About 2004.
Hang on, you can't complain that you had a 10-year-old console, for goodness sakes. There are some families that can't afford PlayStation 2s.
Yeah, but what's it? Your family sends it in. It's not like you paid a load of money where you can go out and buy your PlayStation. But basically, what it is, it's a tool. It's a control tool. If you're well behaved and you're an enhanced prisoner, they allow you to have a PlayStation 1 or 2. You can't get any games from anymore.
John, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much. It's John on the M40. He's been in prison. He's been in prison for 30-odd years for smuggling cocaine. He was complaining that he only had a PlayStation 2 in prison and that you can't get games to them anymore. You can get games to PlayStation 2 very, very cheaply online. So it's not a myth. They don't have Xboxes, no, but they have PlayStation 1 and 2. 08453 0099 56. I suspect this is going to be one of those conversations that starts with one thing, the food situation, prisoners getting bigger and better meals. But we can expand this. We can expand this to how we treat our prisoners. Is it a place of punishment? or is it a place of rehabilitation? And if it's about rehabilitation, then we should be looking after prisoners better, shouldn't we? We should be allowing them to play video games, to make phone calls, to watch DVDs, to eat better food, if we want them to improve their outlook and their behaviour. 08453 009956. Let's go to Terry and Colsley. Morning, Terry.
Good morning.
Terry, you've got a different take on this. What's your story?
Well, first of all, I think a lot of, unless they do very bad things, they should be short, sharp and hard. I don't think they should get any phones, anything like that. I don't think we get in the proper message across to criminals. I think we should make it shorter and harder rather than longer.
What do you mean by harder? How are you going to make it harder?
Make them work every day, do a day's job like they do in Japan, where they have to get up and dig a trench every day and then fill it back in, then dig it out, then fill it in. I mean, if people are sitting like that guy that's just been on with his complaining he ain't got that expert. I mean, I've worked all my life. I haven't got one. I can't afford one. But the thing I found in about was when you go into to court and these prisoners, why should everybody in court have to swear on the Bible to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? And when the judge stands up and gives somebody life sentence, when it's an absolute load of rubbish. I mean, my sister-in-law was murdered some years ago, and the guy that killed her got life. And we all cheered. And the detective said to me later, do you know what they've given him? And I said, yeah, they've given him life. He won't come out until he's there for life. No. It means, I think it was about 15 years, it meant he got... Now, how can the judge... if you can't believe the judge when you go into court, when he tells you what his sentences give people, who the hell can you believe? That's what I'm trying to say. It's a disgrace.
How long ago, if you don't mind me asking, Terry, how long ago was your sister-in-law murdered?
About 25 years.
So the guy that did it is probably out now.
Yeah, he actually told the court that he killed her and how he killed her.
That must have been incredibly painful for you and your family to sit through that.
Shocking, babe, because it was all the softness that went with it in the courts. Our courts, like my dad's always said, our law's the best in the world. If our law's the best in the world, I wouldn't want to see the second one. Because all the evidence that was against the murderer, the judge kept saying, I can't see where this is getting us. There's no need for that. If he hadn't admitted it, and that, what he'd done and how he'd done it, I'm sure he would have got off.
So this guy, do you know if this guy's out, Terry?
Yes, he died. He died of cancer. Well, he was in prison. Or he just got out of prison when he died. He actually served 7 years. They give him 7 years, I think, because
but
of his health.
If this is tough to talk to you about this because of what happened to your family, but I'm going to, so I hope you don't object to what I'm going to say.
No.
If we want people like that to be rehabilitated...
No, I think he should be...
You think he's beyond rehabilitation?
He's gone beyond... Rehabilitation, I think, is for people like burglars and muggers and things like that. Somebody that can actually get a tough sergeant major over them when they get into prison. Somebody tough, an ex-soldier that will say, right... And learn them a quick lesson for the fact that when they've been learnt the lesson, when they come out, they'll say, I am never going back in that place again. That's what I'm trying to... We need to learn prisoners that when they come out... I know a prisoner, and he said it's as soft as... as soft as lying in a nice bed. You've got everything. You ain't got to worry about bills or electric bills like you lot out here. You've got to keep going to work. We don't have to do that. And I think that's the wrong message. We should, for the prisoners' own good, if it was tougher, a lot of them wouldn't want to go back. But
Terry,
if it's easy, they'll go back.
Thank you very much for your time this morning. I'm sorry to hear about the loss of your sister-in-law, but I appreciate... you phoning up to tell me your story. 08453 009956 if you want to take part. We're getting two different sides. Someone who served 30 years and someone whose sister-in-law was murdered. Should prisoners get bigger and better meals whilst they're in prison. It's what inmates at HMP Featherstone in Wolverhampton are requesting. Well, we spoke to the local Conservative MP earlier on, who told me prisoners should get a job inside to pay for their own food. Is he right? Should we be more concerned about the needs and wants of our prison population? I'm joined now by Noel Smith, who is the commissioning editor of Inside Time, the national prisoners magazine. He served 30 years in jail for offences including armed robbery, grievous bodily harm and prison escape. Morning, Noel.
Good morning.
Noel, what do you think? Prisoners, do they have a right to deserve better food?
They certainly have a right to deserve decent and nutritious food, which is not what they're getting at the moment. And as for, I've heard you say about Conservative MP earlier, saying that prisoners should work in prison.
Yeah.
Prisoners are actually crying out for work. There is no work in prison. They're locked up in some cases for 23 hours a day in a cell. So
there's not much work out on the streets for people, is there? So
No, but I mean, there is no work in prison either. So, it's all very well to say they should work to pay for their keep, but a lot of prisoners want to work and can't work. There is no work.
Some people will say, well, tough, they shouldn't have committed a crime.
Well, that's fair enough, I suppose. Yeah.
Why should prisoners get jobs? Why should they be able to buy better food?
They're still human beings. I mean, it depends on what sort of society you want us to be living in. I mean, there's people who say the prisoners should be chained to the wall and fed on bread every month. But if you want people, and, it's a very emotive debate, this, really. Every time it's mentioned, people always bring up murderers, paedophiles, terrorists. They're a very small proportion of our prison.
But they're still play a significant role. We just heard Terry's story there, whose sister-in-law was murdered. Should he be getting decent food? Should he be allowed to order out? Surely the guy who murdered his sister-in-law should be punished.
Nobody's allowed to order anything out in prison, certainly not food. And yes, I think, unless you're going to put someone to death, unless you're going to bring back the death penalty, then, it's our duty to keep people in prison in as humane way as possible. I mean,
but they get fed, that's humane, isn't it?
Pardon?
They get fed, so that's humane.
The prison food budgets have been cut quite significantly over the last couple of years due to the financial crisis, I suppose, and budget cuts in prison. I've actually had a letter this week that's going to be in the next issue of the paper of a prisoner in Liverpool who's eating cockroaches for protein. I mean, this is the 21st century. We're in quite a rich country. Should people in our prisons be eating cockroaches?
But there are people outside who haven't committed crimes who are struggling to eat, who are deciding between... No, I know, but you talk about cutbacks, you talk about tough times. What about the people who haven't committed crimes and are deciding whether they're going to eat today or they're going to turn their heating on? Why should we be spending more on prisoners when there are people who haven't committed crimes who are struggling?
Well, I think that the way I see it is this. If we're going to have a system where we're going to send people to prison for committing crime and that's the punishment that they're going to receive for it, then once they're in prison, they should be treated like humans and be treated humanely. It's as simple as that. And the fact that people outside have got nothing to eat bears no relation to what happens in prison. I think you should be looking at the government for that. It's like these newspapers who print that prisoners are eating lovely Christmas dinners while OAPs are starving outside. Well, feed the OAPs then. Don't point the finger at prisoners, feed the OAPs.
So hang on, prisoners got Christmas dinner this year, did they?
They get a slice of tinned turkey. Every year it's the same thing. So it looks good on paper, but you'd get more nutritional value out of eating the paper. So a slice of tinned turkey is a Christmas dinner.
Xboxes, PlayStations?
Prisoners buy them themselves in certain prisons where they're allowed to have them. They're not supplied by the government or anything.
Why should they be allowed to have them, though? That's the thing, isn't it? Because there will be people thinking, you go to prison, you've committed a murder, you've robbed some old dear, you've mugged someone on the street, you've gone to prison. Why should you be allowed a PlayStation? Why should you be allowed better food?
Well, we're not talking about better food here. We're talking about, a normal, nutritionally balanced diet, which is what prisoners are not getting at the moment. It's not about giving them better food or about giving them Xboxes or PlayStations. What they do is, when they're in prison, when people are in prison, you work towards a goal, a sentence plan, where you can earn the right, the privilege to buy these certain things out of your own money. So it's no drain on the government or the public. It's actually prisoners buying this stuff themselves when they reach a certain level of good behaviour.
Couple of texts. Let me put these to you if I can, Noel. Jay in Dudley says, prison doesn't sound like punishment anymore. It's being locked in your bedroom for being naughty. No wonder people reoffend with all the luxuries. And Julia in Tiverdale says, prisoners will be demanding they'll be allowed takeaways next. They're very lucky they have the facilities they have. It can't be that bad. Some return again and again.
Yeah, the people who return again and again are mainly down to the fact that our prisons are not run very well, and we have no rehabilitation to speak of in this country. I mean, the quality of our rehabilitation is this. Chris Grayling, the Minister for Justice, has recently changed prisons so that everyone has to wear a uniform. How is that going to stop anybody reoffending when they get out? A lot of people, you've had the mental health minister on the news this morning saying how many mentally ill people there are in our prisons, vast amounts of them, and yet people still, do you want people rehabilitated and to come out as normal, upstanding members of the community, or do you want them coming out as bitter, twisted, frustrated people who go straight back to crime because they've learnt nothing in prison? We should be training our prisons. We should have rehabilitation in our prisons rather than when you get out. And everybody who goes into prison should be rehabilitated and turned out, if they can be, as a normal, upstanding member of the community. There's no good putting people in prison and saying, chain them to the wall, give them a bit of bread, give them nothing, because that doesn't help the situation. They will still come out as the same.
Noel, stay there a second. I'm speaking to Noel Smith, commissioning editor of Inside Time. Carol is in Yardley. Morning, Carol.
Good morning.
Carol, you've heard what Noel has to say about prisons and food and things like that. What's your reaction?
My reaction is, can I first of all comment on the man who smuggled the drugs?
OK, that was John, yes, who smuggled some cocaine and got 30-odd years, yeah.
Well, anyone who smuggles drugs, sells drugs, supplies drugs, lock them up, throw the key away for life because of all the other lives that they ruin. They're as bad as murder. They are murderers. That's the only word for it. As for the...
It's not their fault people take drugs, is it?
No, but they make it easy for them to get hold of, and they're lining their pockets on other people's misery.
OK, what's your reaction to what Noel was saying?
A little bit of I agree with. Yes, people should be rehabilitated. Also, I believe what the other man said should be right about making them work. Why should, if it is just digging a hole and filling it in day after day, they've got to learn. They've got to learn something. And also the government's to blame as well with this care in the community for people who have mental health issues. How many mental health issues do you think are caused by people who are taking drugs? Has anybody brought that up? And all these so-called designer drugs, like MCAT, methadone, has anybody thought about that?
Wang.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I can't say no more.
Carol, thank you very much indeed. I would imagine Carol's had her life touched by someone who's used drugs. No, you heard Carol there, and it's been suggested, but let's do what they're doing in Communist China and Japan. Let's get prisoners digging a load of ditches and filling them back in.
I was actually in prison in the 70s as a juvenile when that was exactly what we did. We dug holes in fields and filled them back in for the duration of our sentences.
How did that make you feel?
It made me feel quite fit and ready to go back to crime, and quite bitter and twisted about what had been done to me. So, it swings and roundabouts. I was an immature juvenile, and because they'd made me dig holes and fill them back in again for 6 months, I decided that when I got out, work was not an option because I'd learned nothing in prison. What I'd learnt is work is backbreaking, very poorly paid, so therefore crime is a better option. What you have to do with people in prison is replace what they didn't have outside, which is a sense of community, a work ethic. And, I've got to say, 2/3 of the prison population, they calculate, are diagnosed with at least one mental illness. Most of the prison population, 80% of the prison population, are addicted to drugs or alcohol. People have got mental health issues and addiction issues. And, having them digging holes in fields might be good for them because they're out of their cell and they're not locked up for 23 hours a day. But when they get out, it gives them nothing to come out to. We should train the people who are in prison. Obviously not people who are what people would class as evil, murderers, terrorists, paedophiles. But, the vast majority of the prison population, I don't know if you know, that right now, as we're speaking, 14,000 people in our prisons have yet to be convicted of a crime. They're on remand. So the prison population is very varied, and there are certain people in there who, if you teach them a trade while they're in prison, will never come back to jail again. There are a lot of first offenders. There are a lot of people who are in for petty crime committed due to poverty. So there's no quick fix. But if you start teaching, if you give people in prison something that will be useful in their lives rather than just locking them into a cell for 23 hours a day or having them digging holes in a field and filling them back in, teach them trades. And then when they get out, it's like the old saying, give a man a fish he'll eat for today, teach him to fish he'll eat for the rest of his life. And that's what we should be doing with prisoners, teaching them different ways of doing things.
Noel, I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much indeed. That's Noel Smith, commissioning editor of Inside Time, National Prisoners Magazine. It is relevant for me to point out that he served 30 years in jail for armed robbery, GBH and prison escape. So what do you think? Prisoners, is it punishment or is it rehabilitation? Should we be offering them more to make them feel, I don't know, more human, more optimistic, more like there is an alternative? And would bigger and better meals be a part of that? 08453 009956. Eddie's in Nuneaton. Morning, Eddie.
How you doing? All right?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, Eddie. What would you like to say?
The emphasis should actually be on rehabilitation. What Noel was saying is absolutely right. People like Noel should be listened to. He's a voice of reason. Prison is not a place for punishment. There is nobody qualified in our community, society, that can actually have a right to say that they're a disciplinarian, if you like. The people that need to be taken notice of are people who are professional, people who have had experience. You've had Noel on talking about reform. That's why you've got such things as prison reform societies, because the prison system, as I understand it, in this country really does need to be reformed, because successive governments are doing zilch about it. And you've got, I suspect that most of the prison population are from dysfunctional families, and there's an awful lot of work that professional people do with prisoners, as I understand. Not that I've got any experience of that. I mean, I can boast of having a CRB clean sheet. Those are good reference to have.
But Eddie, if someone's murdered your mum or someone's murdered a member of your family, you'd want them punished, wouldn't you? You wouldn't want them playing PlayStation, even if it was only PlayStation 2.
No. Someone has murdered my auntie last year.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, Emma Winnell was murdered, and they haven't found the person responsible. They don't know. They haven't got any evidence from what I gather. They might have DNA, but we haven't found anything.
When that person is eventually caught, what would you like to have happen to them?
Well, prison is a place to take them out of circulation. That's its primary object. Its primary object is criminals who are guilty of vile crimes, especially against children and women. They should serve long sentences, and they should only ever be considered for release if they are genuinely rehabilitated. There's too many people who commit petty crime, and they're in and out of the prison system. There's all that rigmarole, and no wonder the prison authorities become complacent. They couldn't give a toss, because they know that the people are in and out of their doors don't give a toss either. So what they're thinking to themselves, they'll do what they've got to do and no more. I mean, the idea of giving them PlayStations, they don't give them PlayStations. How they acquire these PlayStations is up to the prison authorities. It's obviously family or whatever, or they own.
But I guess, Eddie, we've got to move on because we're running out of time. But thank you very much, Eddie and Nuneaton. I guess the question about PlayStations is we've discovered this morning they're not supplied by the prison service. The prisoner has to pay for it, or the family are allowed to send it in. I guess the question is, should they be allowed to have it? Not whether it's who supplies it, but should they be allowed to have it? It's a tough one, isn't it? Really, and I guess, well, we can all have an opinion, but I guess your opinion will be tainted if you've either been in prison or if you have been the victim of a crime. 08453 009956. You can send me an email as well, iain.lee@bbc.co.uk. Let me just do one quick email from someone claiming to be Victor Meldrew. Perhaps you should care more about pensioners and poor people using food banks in your programme and not pampered prisoners. Prisoners are there not after the first offence, but mainly multiple crimes committed by their own choice as a result of their own actions. For goodness sake, another left-wing bleeding heart presenter. I'm off to another radio station. Your programme is a waste of time. Humbug. Victor Meldrew. Thank you very much indeed. If you want to send me an email, iain.lee@bbc.co.uk. It's 9:45. Let's get the travel news now. Here's Liz Saul.
Thank you very much, Ian. The M6 going south has reopened between 10A and 10. The M54 to the Wolverhampton and Walsall turn. However, those lengthy queues remain back past junction 11, which is the Cannock exit. Although, as I say, the carriageway has reopened in the last sort of 15 minutes or so. There's an awful lot of flooding around affecting the roads today. As you may be aware, there's been a lot of heavy rain around the last 24 hours or so. And in Wolverhampton, Furnace Grange Road remains shut at Bridge North Road, the A454, and in Oddingley Green Lane is still closed between Smite Lane and Plough Lane. It's busy into Birmingham on the A456, the Hagley Road, passing Monument Road and towards Five Ways Island. Not too bad otherwise. If you can update us, call BBC WM 95.6 Travel 08453 002288.
Have your say on your club.
It's Paul Lambert on Planet Mars. The crux of it is we're not getting any shots on target. Got a load of tripe on the pitch. It's abysmal. He don't for a shifty. Got more productivity for West Bromwich Albion. Dino's done a great job. Absolute travesty. That midfield is absolutely pathetic. We can't boil in a time. It was absolute garbage.
More Wolves.
More Baggies.
More Blues. More Saddlers. More Villa.
The West Midlands' biggest football phone-in. After every game and every weeknight from 6.
BBC WM 95.6.
Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC WM 95.6 here every Saturday morning between 9 and 12. Later on, very excited. There are two music stories. The sad one, Phil Everly of the Everly Brothers has died. I say sad, he was 74. So that's pretty good going. The good story, give us a call with your memories on the Everleys, please. Never a band I was particularly into, but they are cited as being one of the huge influences on rock and roll. The good news story, the Kinks might be getting back together. Now, I mentioned this to Molly about an hour ago. Silence, blank face. Huh? What? The Kinks are the fourth best British rock and roll band of all time. Aren't they? So, how excited are you about the Kinks getting back together? If you want to phone up and say they're rubbish, you can do, but what other bands would you like to see get back together as well? 08453 009956, or you can text 81333, start your text WM, or you can email Iain, IAIN.LEE, at bbc.co.uk. We'll talk about that a little bit after 10, maybe. What we're talking about now, prisoners. Prisoners at a Wolverhampton prison are demanding they be fed bigger and better meals. Now, you or your grandparents or your neighbour might be having to make the decision today with all this wind and this rain. Do they eat or do they heat? Are they going to cook a meal or are they going to turn the radiators on for an hour? People are genuinely making this decision all across the country. And prisoners are demanding bigger and better meals. How does that make you feel? 08453 009956. Marlene's in Wolverhampton. Morning, Marlene.
Good morning, Ian.
What would you like to say?
I'm just going to make a statement, and one is I have family members who've been inside. I don't talk about it. But I've also got family members who have been in the army, and there are two different breeds. The army ones, they can make beds, they can cook, they can turn their hand to almost anything. They get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's regimental. And they are well-rounded youngsters. Well, they're older people now. But then the ones that have been inside, well, what can I say? And I just think they should be run almost like army. You know, you volunteer to go into into the army, and you end up doing all sorts of things, and you come out with a trade and that, and it's a volunteer. These people have done things to go in prison, and I'm not saying they lounge about. I know that's not true. And it's not necessarily their fault because they haven't got structure, but they need to have structure and they need to have something that's going to get them up each day and they know what they're going to do. And if they don't comply, just like in the army, then woe betide. So I don't understand why they don't have that kind of structure. It makes no sense to me at all.
Is it? But that wouldn't work, would it? What punishments would you give them if they didn't follow the regime?
Punishment. You don't have to give somebody... I think being inside and your civil liberties would be taken away is kind of a punishment. But I also think that rehabilitation would mean you need those kind of army, corporal, sergeant majors type thing. They're up out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning.
No, really, Molly? That wouldn't work. To rule and to rehabilitate people through fear?
No, it's not necessarily fear. If you talk to people who've been in the army, it's not necessarily fear that gets them out. It's because they want to learn, they want to get fit, they want to serve. It's because it's for their country. And I know that it's not for their country, but it's a want to get rehabilitated. It's a want to change their lives. It's a want to learn from people who've done bigger and better things and role models. So it's a need for me. That's how I see it. I don't think that people should be in prison and then, yes, they're let out and they have their breakfast and they have a chat and they have their Xbox, they watch a bit of telly. You know, they can decide whether they want to do a bit of work. It's not, that does not work. You know, you will do kitchens for a month. You will do studying. You will do this. You can choose, but you will do that as far as I'm concerned. And what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with it as far as I'm concerned. You know, you can't just leave people unrehabilitated. You have to have a structure for them. You have a structure. You've got your job. You know what you're doing with your family. They need a structure. And it needs to be a structure in their lives that they can turn around and say, right, if I don't comply, then I know I'm going to get some kind of punishment. I'm going to get the television taken away. I'm not going to have my Xbox. I'm not going to have this. People might disagree with me, but at the end of the day, that's how we all live our lives. We live our lives by, if I don't do the right thing at work, I have a punishment. There is a consequence.
Consequence to your action. Marlene, thank you very much indeed. 08453 009956. Gary's on the M42. Morning, Gary.
Morning, Ian.
Gary, you've been in prison, but not for being naughty, is that right?
That's correct. I just thought I'd tell you a story about, I'm a refrigeration engineer.
Oh, yeah.
And I was doing a call-out at a real posh hotel in Stratford-on-Avon in their kitchen. Did the job, and my next call was for a major Category O prison in Birmingham. I got to Birmingham, and the kitchens at this prison was 10 times better than this posh hotel had come from Stratford. The food was all branded names. I spoke to the chef, told him where I'd just come from, and he opened the drawers and he was showing me branded names, breakfast cereal, branded names. The food was 10 times better than where I just come from, where people have been paying a lot of money to stay.
But that's not what we've been hearing from people who've served time, is it? That they've been saying, the food is stodgy, it's bland, it's not particularly exciting.
Well, I can only tell you what I saw.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact, because the chef was telling me, that they have to prepare halal meals and vegetarian meals. They have like a menu to choose from. The prison, I think it's the governor, has to taste the food. The food was better than the hotel I just come from.
Should they get bigger and better meals, Gary? Should they get PlayStation? Should they get things like that, or should we be tougher?
I mean, I can also tell you about another prison I worked in Milton Keynes. Now, in this particular prison, the day we was there, Tottenham Hotspur was playing in a European Cup match. And a lot of the prisoners was excited, and a lot of the prisoners where we was working was segregated, so I don't know what they did, I don't really want to know. But the match kicked off, and all of a sudden, there's a big hoo-ha and there's banging on the doors, and I thought, what's going on? But surprise, surprise, the circuit breaker had tripped out with the television. So they didn't get to watch the match. But as soon as the match finished, miraculously, it came back on. Now, read into that what you want to, but it's not as easy as people think. From what I've seen working in there, to be shut away for hours on I don't know, I just think that people need to go in and have a look at these places.
Gary, thank you very much indeed. And he's got a point, hasn't he? We can't... I've always wanted to spend 2 nights in prison, not because I've done anything, knowing that it would only be 2 nights, but I'd love to, wouldn't you? You must be curious to know what it's like inside. 2 nights, perfect, that will do me. See exactly what's going on. We don't know, do we? How do we know what it's like in prison? From watching Porridge? Yeah. And The Green Mile. That's it. I don't have a clue. 08453 009956 is the telephone number. Oh, we've got a text here. We just spoke to Marlene in Wolverhampton, who said short shocks and take away things if people are bad in prison. Marlene for prison governor, in fact, Prime Minister. Well, that's one idea. Dave's in Dudley. Morning, Dave.
Morning, mate. You all right?
Yeah, I'm good. Have you been in prison?
Yeah, to be honest, I've never been in a civilian prison. I've been into prison once for 7 months when I was in the British Army.
Oh, right. What did you do for that to get that?
Oh, mate, I don't want to mention it on the phone, but like I say, believe you me, I went there for 7 months, and I never wish to return to a prison ever again in my entire life. And
Dave, just put your mouth a bit nearer the phone because it's going a bit muffled. I've heard that army prison is tougher than civilian prison. Is that right?
It's absolutely correct, yes. Absolutely correct, because you're out your cells at 6 o'clock in the morning and you're out there working, doing different jobs. You don't go back to your cell till 8 o'clock at night. There's no TVs, there's no radio, there's no socialising.
And how did that make you feel? And how did that affect your attitude?
Well, my attitude is a lot better because I knew that I did wrong to get there in the first place, but it just reinforced because we was being educated, we was being run round, we was being told discipline, the rights and wrongs, and basically you knew your place, you didn't answer back, and you was just like adhered to the structure of the regime, and if you didn't, you was punished for it, and it was simple as that. Yes was yes and no was no.
But would that only work for you, Dave, because I'm assuming you were from a military background if you were serving time in a military prison. Yes. So you'd kind of signed up for that lifestyle of being literally ordered around. Would that necessarily have the same effect on civilian prisoners?
I think it would, because at the end of the day, I think these civilian prisoners, they don't know the meaning of the word discipline. I think discipline is something that's been left out of their life. I think if you go into a regime like that, like they're doing to America, you soon learn the meaning of the word discipline and hard work, and you put what you get out of life is what you put into it. That's what I learned, because I got sentenced in the army, and I was actually being discharged back into civilian life. So really, it was like, you know what I mean, it just learned me never to go in there again. It was a horrendous experience, and PlayStations, TVs, radios, I didn't see none of them because they just wasn't allowed. That was it. You had one visit every 6 weeks, and you was allowed one phone call home every 2 weeks, and that was that. That was the regime, and you adhered to it. Simple as
Dave,
that.
Can I just ask you one question on a completely different tangent?
Yeah.
Are you excited that the Kinks might be getting back together?
I am, yes. I love the Kinks. They're fantastic. They really laid the foundations in the 60s for the music, what it is today. Personally, I think they're excellent.
Can you believe Molly, who does the show before me, she doesn't like them?
Oh, the Kinks, they were brilliant. They were absolutely... If you play a King song for me, that would make my day.
Dave, thank you very much. We'll see what we can dig out. Thank you very much indeed. Dave in Dudley. We'll talk about the Kinks after 10. Don't worry. I'm very, very excited. He served time in military prison. Whoa. What did he do to get 7 months in military prison? Strict, tough regime. You're up at 6, you're digging ditches, you're marching, you're following orders, you get back to your room at 8, your cell at 8 o'clock. That wouldn't really work in civilian prison, would it? Would it? We need to be a bit more sensitive in prisons towards our prisoners, don't we? 08453 009956. We can carry on talking about this after 10 o'clock if you want. I'm keen to get your thoughts. This has all started because some prisoners have demanded bigger and better meals. And it's kind of opened up the conversation into how people are treated in prisons and whether we should be a bit softer on prisons. I don't know if the short, sharp shock would work. Wouldn't that just create resentment within the prisoners, within the people who are living in that community? Wouldn't it make them angrier? Wouldn't it make them more likely to commit crimes? They wouldn't have learned any skills that would have improved their lives. And it's interesting as well, isn't it? Marlene mentioned the military, where people are trained to kill and are paid to kill. 08453 009956. We'll talk about that. Also coming up, your memories of the Everly Brothers, please. And, oh man alive, I thought this day would never come. It's looking like the Kinks. I said they were the fourth. I now think I've done the maths. They are the third best British rock and roll band of all time. The Kinks might be getting back together. What bands would you like to see get back together? 08453 009956.
The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
BBC WM 95.6.
Right, it's 10 o'clock. Let's get the news and sport now. Here's Sarah Poole.
Good morning. Prisoners at a Wolverhampton jail are demanding bigger and better meals. The campaign by inmates at HMP Featherstone was revealed this week in an annual report into the jail. Officials at the prison insist inmates are served a wide-ranging menu, including 5 portions of fruit and veg a day. Gavin Williamson is the Tory MP for South Staffordshire.
Well, there's nothing wrong with making sure that prisoners all have, and it's absolutely correct to make sure prisoners have the right diet and everything else, but I think the idea that prisoners suddenly start demanding bigger portions and everyone jumps to attention is a little bit ridiculous. And I think people find this, excuse the pun, but a little bit hard to swallow when we're paying for all of this.
Forecasters say more bad weather is expected this weekend after yesterday's strong winds and high tides which flooded hundreds of homes and many businesses. Some places could see up to an inch of rain today, and there'll be more gales tomorrow. 4 severe flood warnings remain in place, 3 for the River Severn in Gloucestershire and 1 on the Dorset coast. A man originally from Walsall has been charged with attempting to hire a hitman to murder his ex-wife in the United States. William Wallace, who's now living in California, is accused of trying to have her killed over Christmas whilst he was in the UK. Prosecutors say it followed a custody dispute over their daughter. Staffordshire County Council shutting a specialist care centre for people with learning disabilities. Facilities will go in Codsall as part of cuts across the county. Councillor Alan White says all users will be reassessed over the next few months.
So we wouldn't just put people out and say, off you go and take up the opportunities that are outside. What we would do is wrap around a package of assessments of their needs, and then we'd help them find what's suitable for them to do in the community.
The singer Phil Everly of the Everly Brothers has died in California at the age of 74. They had a number of hits in the 50s and 60s with songs like Bye Bye Love and this.
Ooh la la, wake up pretty Susie, wake up pretty Susie.
Phil Everly's wife, Patty, says he died from a lung condition after a lifetime of smoking and that she feels heartbroken. In sport, West Brom will be aiming to make it past the 3rd round of the FA Cup this afternoon as Premier League rivals Crystal Palace visit the Hawthorns. Aston Villa take on League One at Sheffield United at Villa Park. There'll be commentary here on BBC WM 95.6 from 3 o'clock, but our build-up starting at midday with Daz Hale's early kick-off. Weather-wise, pretty wet this morning with more scattered showers and sunny spells this afternoon with highs of 8 degrees Celsius, that's 46 degrees Fahrenheit. Tonight, showers will die out, leaving clear spells, but temperatures will drop close to freezing. BBC WM 95.6 News. There's more online at bbc.co.uk/WM.
The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
They have kids and they want somebody else to keep them.
Social services shouldn't exist.
I know quite a few people that have had pay cuts in their wages just to hang on to their job.
Iain Lee, Saturdays
9 till 12.
BBC WM 95.6.
Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC WM 95.6. Coming up in this hour, we'll get around to talking about the Kinks reforming. Are you excited? And which bands would you like to see get back together? We'll also be asking, how much is your local bobby worth? How much are your police officers worth to you? How much should they get paid? But we're carrying on the discussion for the next 15 minutes or so at least about prisoners and how much food they get. They're demanding bigger and better meals. Are we too soft on our prisons?
Have your say.
Across the West Midlands, call 08453 009956.
BBC WM 95.6.
08453 009956. I've got an email here. I've been told to keep anonymous. My dad was put in military prison for 8 weeks in the 50s after... What did he do? Accidentally shooting someone in the bum while he was cleaning his gun. Ouch. The person was OK, but Dad basically had to peel potatoes for 2 months. Well, yes, I can understand why you would possibly go to prison for something like that. Bob's in Quinton. Morning, Bob.
Morning.
Bob, you've been in prison how many times?
Well, basically, I was in Borstal, detention centres, blah, blah, blah. That was in early when I was younger. Then I ended up going to prison. Then I stayed out for a while, then ended up getting a big sentence. And I've come out in 96. I haven't been in trouble since 96, but last year I spent 5 years. There's a big gap between from 96 to last year, 5 weeks in a prison. and I couldn't believe it. It's a prison. I won't name the name of the prison because it was I was up in New Toxter. I had Sky Sports 1, Sky Sports 2. The food was perfect. I had a phone in me. I wouldn't call it a cell. A walk-in shower. It was unbelievable. So, the guy...
What, in your cell, you had a walk-in shower and a telephone?
A phone in my cell, but obviously I had to put credits on the phone. So I could use the phone 24 hours a day, as long as I had credits on it. You understand what I mean?
Can I ask, what had you done to get sent to prison for this 5 weeks?
For the 5 weeks, it was a domestic, and because of my record and blah, 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 all charges was dropped, sort of thing. I went to court. Everything was put out of court, dropped. I was released, but I couldn't believe the 5 weeks from when it was 1996. When I come out in 96, I hadn't been in trouble from that because of my criminal record for violence, nothing else. Before any, I know it's the one.
You say nothing else, Bob. If you've been served time for violence, it must have been something pretty nasty. What did you do?
Well, it was Section 18, and
what does that mean?
Section 18, it's one down from manslaughter. Section 18 is grievous bodily harm. The person I was in for, I received a 5.5-year sentence, and 4 or 5 months after that, the same person got a 4-year sentence. So it wasn't some innocent bloke walking his dog. So before anyone says that, I mean, I've done wrong, served my time, but when I went back for them 5 weeks, I couldn't believe the difference.
It had changed a lot, had it?
It changed. It's not... I know that you spoke to that guy who's done a lot of time, Bird, or whatever you want to call it now, and whatever, and there's the other guy who talked, the drug-dealing bloke. He's obviously never been to the prisons. See, before, you went from Cat B, Cat C, Cat D, you went through the rigmarole, blah, blah, blah. I've never ever seen them days, a PlayStation, wherever. What I seen in the last place for them 5 weeks was unbelievable. You had an Argus catalogue.
What?
You had an Argus catalogue to order your stuff. And if you had, and also the guy says you can only earn £10 a week. Some of the jobs in that prison, they was earning £75 a week.
But I'm guessing this isn't your kind of atypical prison. This is a different prison. It sounds like an open prison. Is that right?
No, Cat B.
Cat B, okay.
Cat B prison.
So who were you in with? What other kind of people were in there?
There was all Cat B prisoners. Cat B. There was no Cat A. Just Cat B.
Give me some examples of what Category B is.
Category B, your murder, your sex offenders.
Hang on. So there are murderers and sex offenders with access to the Argos catalogue?
You've got an Argus catalogue. Do you want me to give you the name of the prison?
No. There's no need to do that. But there'll be people listening who find that incredible.
I can guarantee you get an Argus catalogue, and obviously you've got to have the finances to buy the stuff. But the plasma little plasma, I want to say little, it's a portable TV, but it's a plasma little TV. You've got that, and you've got Sky, which is a charge of 20 pence a day for the Sky Sports 1, Sky Sports 2. And in the next cell to me, there was a guy in there moaning because his remote control weren't working. And that, you can check the details up, and that is... when I come out of there, that I'd rather... Prison, it's like the older screws, wardens. If they could see what them prisons are like now, they wouldn't believe it. And if I thought, that someone was in there for damaging one of my kids or doing blah, 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 it's a joke. You wouldn't believe
Bob, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much, Bob in Quinton. There are murderers and sex offenders with access to the Argos catalogue. I don't know why I find that so offensive, but I do for some reason. 08453 00 9956 is the phone number. Kevin's in Solihull. Morning, Kevin.
Morning, Ian.
You've been a victim of crime. What happened to you?
Basically, I was stabbed 3 times during a robbery on my home in early May this year, and rushed to hospital. It was very traumatic.
So what time of day did this happen?
9:15 on the evening.
And what, you were just home watching the telly and someone burst in?
Yeah. Just 3 masked men burst in the back door, broke open the glass window on the door, and I went to investigate, and they rushed in and stabbed me, sprayed me with CS gas, hit me on the head with a brick, And the point that I thought I should ring up for is the one of these offenders had only just been out of prison 2 weeks. Just 2 weeks from serving a similar sentence for breaking the arm of a woman in a previous robbery. I think that what the public need to understand is that, of course, that first-time offenders, I think, should all be treated like human beings and given the dignity that everybody deserves. But there are thousands of these career criminals there that have no respect for anyone's life or property, and they should just be treated like animals, basically, because they act like animals. They take people's lives, destroy people's lives.
Were you on your own when this happened, Kevin?
No. I was with my wife and 2 young daughters.
Oh, my goodness. How old are your kids?
16 and 18. They witnessed this. My kitchen was white. It was covered in blood on every surface, every door surface. It's just horrific, and these offenders, for the public listening out there and think this is an isolated case, had done 30 to 40 similar attacks on people before me.
How do you get over something like that happening to you in your own home?
You don't. That's the best way I can describe it. You don't. And these people, they've been jailed for this. But these same beautiful people will be out again within 5 or 6 years, and someone else will suffer the same consequences that I have suffered. And there's a rotation of career criminals. It doesn't matter how many offences they've done. They're just in and out and in and out. And
well, then how do we stop that, Kevin? Is it being harsher? Is it being more listening and caring? What can we do to stop that happening?
I think when they first find themselves in jail, they should be given every help that man can give anyone, to solve their problems and help them to a better life. But I think if they continue to reoffend, they've obviously chosen that path. They just need to be locked up for much longer periods, so each offence doubles from their first offence to the point where they just don't come out anymore, because they have no respect for anyone's life. I mean, to stab you 3 times and hit you on a brick, hit your head up, hit you with a brick, just to try and take a few possessions you might have, is just ridiculous.
Are you back in your house now, Kevin?
Yes.
Are you in there right this second?
Yes, I am, yeah.
What does it feel like being in something that's been violated like that?
You feel like you're living under siege, really. You're suspicious of everybody that comes to the door, everybody that walks up your drive, every noise at night. And these people are locked up, but there are plenty more of these people out there. I must warn the public, they don't leave your keys in your back doors. They smash your doors and turn your key. If don't leave your any car keys you have hanging round, they'll break down the front door to get to any particular car.
How are your wife and kids now, Kevin?
Well, not very well.
Yeah.
Not very well. They're basically more traumatised from seeing me taken to the ambulance.
Yeah.
They really did think it was the last time they was going to see me. That's.
And are you getting help? Are you seeing people to help you through this?
No, I'm quite a pragmatic man.
Right. Okay.
I'm quite a pragmatic man, and there are worse things in the world going on. So I do tend to deal things myself. The only things that upset me is my children seeing it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, not myself. I can deal with things quite calmly. But no, it's not nice for your children to witness something like that.
Kevin, I really appreciate your call this morning. Thank you very much. Wow. What an horrific story. You pray to God something like that never happens to you, don't you? 08453 009956. Right, it's coming up to 10:15. It's BBC WM 95.6. Let's get the travel now. Here's Liz Saul.
Thank you very much, Ian. As you make your way around Birmingham and the Black Country, you'll find an awful lot of flooding around surface water, very wet and soggy roads, so that's making driving conditions, even on the motorways, quite difficult this morning. In Wolverhampton, Furnace Grange Road is shut because of flooding at the A454, and in Oddingley, Green Lane is still shut for the same reason between Smite Lane and Plough Lane. Better news on the M6, though. That accident has cleared between 10A and 10, and traffic is improving as you make your way south from Junction 11 and passing the Hilton Park services towards Junction 10 at the A454. If you can update us, call BBC WM 95.6 Travel 08453 002288.
Pete Morgan at breakfast.
On Friday's programme, we heard about the residents being asked for directions by prisoners who'd just been released from jail.
How bad is this problem now?
There's up to 3,000 prisoners here, and we do get some prisoners who have got no transport home, and some of the residents are getting a bit intimidated when they're waiting for the buses with these ex-prisoners.
I ask you whether you still shop at Debenhams after the store issued a profits warning.
They seem to keep putting the loads of rubbish out that they don't sell, and they look like they're old stock.
It's all down to online now. I think that's the way things are going now.
Pete Morgan at breakfast.
I'm back Monday morning at 6 for a brand new week.
On BBC WM 95.6.
Morning, this is Ian Lee, BBC WM 95.6. I'm still in shock from that last call. What an horrific story. Your home you think it's the safest place in the world. Nothing can happen to you in your home. Everything that you've worried about and you've stressed about is locked outside. To have three fellas burst in and stab you, then smack you over the head with a brick. What for? DVD player, TV, bit of jewellery? Really? Deary me, 08453 009956. We'll be talking about policemen. How much do you think we should pay policemen in a few minutes? I'm keen to get your thoughts on that. But talking more about prisons and prisoners, Gladys is in Wolverhampton. Morning, Gladys.
Good morning.
Gladys, we should give them bigger and better meals, and we should treat them a bit softer. That would stop them reoffending. What do you think?
I think it should be made very unpleasant for them to be in prison.
Oh.
But you've been talking about digging holes, digging ditches and then filling them in.
Yes.
Why fill the ditches in? The reason we're in the mess we're in now is because all the greedy farmers have made their fields very big, filled in all the ditches. All the ditches have gone from the roadside when I was a youngster. Every country road had a big ditch. And gradually the water used to seep into the rivers. Now it just goes in with one big swoop, because there's no ditches to contain.
When you mentioned the mess that we're in now, I thought you were talking about the financial mess that we were talking about, but you're talking about the weather mess.
I'm talking about the weather we're having, and that the ditches could be built or done by the prisoners who've got nothing else to do, and it would cost nothing except perhaps the price of a few shovels. And the prisoners would be out in the open air where they want to be. I think so. But ditches would be the best thing that they could possibly do. And there's plenty of ditches where the farmers have filled them in.
Gladys, thank you very much indeed. That's Gladys's point of view. We'll keep talking about this throughout the morning. 08453 009956.
Ian Lee.
On BBC WM
95.6.
The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
Now, moving on to other things, the man in charge of policing in the West Midlands has set out his commitment to setting the starting salary for new recruits at £22,000. Last night, the Police and Crime Commissioner, Bob Jones, told BBC WM he wants new officers to get the maximum pay possible under new government regulations, which could otherwise see salaries cut to as low as £19,000. Well, these men and women are out on the streets trying to protect us and the law, and they're often risking their own lives in the process. So, what do you think they're worth? 22 grand, is that fair and generous sum in times of austerity, or a cheap rate for those who do a dangerous and challenging job for our sakes? To put it in perspective, starting salaries for teachers is about £200 a year less. 08453 009956. Coppers, do we need to pay them more, or do they have to take a hit like everybody does? Joined now by Ian Edwards, who is the chair of the West Midlands Police Federation, which represents ordinary officers. Morning, Ian.
Morning, Ian. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you very much. Do you agree with what Bob Jones says?
I do. Unfortunately, Bob's got his hands tied by government regulations, but
I do think it's important that we attract the right people to the job in the West Midlands to serve the communities. My concern at the moment is that in the past we've been able to attract people who want to join the service between the ages of 25 to 35 who've got life experience, are able to talk to people, diffuse situations, and have gained common sense over a number of years through work and life in general. I question now whether we'll actually attract those kinds of people with a starting salary of 22,000. I imagine the majority of those kind of people will be in other careers and progressed up their pay scales in their own careers and would be taking a hit to actually leave their jobs to come and join West Midlands Police. But I do agree with Bob, it's important that we pay the maximum that we can to try and attract the right people.
Do you think the government were wrong to agree to salaries being as low as 19,000? I think that came in about 6 months ago.
Yeah, I do. Policing is very difficult. And as I said, it's not about qualifications. A lot of the time it's about common sense and life experience. And we have to get the right people. At the moment, Bob's looking to recruit around 450 over the next couple of years. And there'll be a glut of people that apply because of the job situation, the job market at the moment. But it's vital we attract the right people who are capable of doing the job and capable of serving the communities in West Midlands, and that's what they deserve.
That £19,000 starting point, though, it does increase quite rapidly, doesn't it?
It does. They're shortening the pay scales. We used to have it's a little bit complicated, but there used to be 10 rungs on a constable's pay scale. There's now going to be 7. So you will get to the top of your salary quicker. But, for instance, at the moment, we're having an incremental pay freeze that the government imposed, so no one's progressing at the moment through their pay scales. So it's all well and good saying that we'll get to the top of our pay scales quicker, but at any stage the government can say, well, actually, we're going to freeze that, which is where we are at the moment in the service. And I welcome the shortening of the pay scales, but it's not in tablets of stone that you'll carry on moving up those scales.
Do you think that the wrong elements are being attracted to the police service?
I wouldn't say wrong elements. It's the same as any other job, I guess. You get thousands of people apply and you paper sift and then you interview. And every once in a while we get a bad egg that gets through with robust investigation that we have at the moment. They usually get weeded out at some stage. And the process that we're looking at employing now to get people in the job is robust enough to manage to get the right people. But I'm just worried that we might not attract the slightly older, slightly maturer, life experience kind of people, which in the past have served the public well. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with joining the police at 18. I joined at 18.
God, no! I don't want boys and girls being police officers. Makes me feel old.
Yeah, and I understand that. But you have to be able to speak to the revellers on Broad Street on New Year's Eve. If they're all 18, they don't want to come up and speak to someone who's 45, 50. They perhaps want some understanding from officers that are 18, 19, 20, who have something in common with them, can talk to them on their level. It's important to have that community engagement at all levels. So we can't just go out and say, we want people with life experience, we want 35 plus, and we're not going to look at anybody else. Because it's important that we're a cross-section of society and that we represent everybody and we're able to interact and talk to everybody. So whilst I do agree to some extent that there is a section of society that said, they're too young to police, they're boys in uniform and girls in uniform, it's important that we have that youth and that fresh blood, new ideas and enthusiasm to police the streets.
Is there a danger, Ian, do you think, that if police officers aren't paid enough, that they could be open to temptation?
I think that's always a concern. I don't think it's realised too often. What tends to happen now is police can have other jobs. They can apply to the force, and as long as it doesn't conflict with what they do, they register a business interest, and that can be anything from renting properties abroad, managing properties in our country. We've got, I think we've got a vicar somewhere that carries out services. There's people that have got qualifications in plastering and plumbing. And at the weekends, they'll go and do that to supplement their salary. And that's already happening up and down the country in police forces. So I don't think that the kind of people who want to join the police are subject to temptation that often. What I do think is they'll try and supplement their salaries by doing
I find that a little bit worrying, Ian, because I would have thought policing... I've got a lot of respect for the police. Obviously, we hear a few stories, but all of my nearly all of my dealings with the police have been spot on. Yeah. I would feel concerned if I knew the officer I was dealing with at the weekend was doing a bit of mini-cabbing or a bit of plumbing.
Yeah, but it happens. It's the same as any other job. As long as it doesn't interfere with their police, it doesn't come into conflict. You couldn't run a pub. You couldn't go and be a member of door staff. And obviously you're subject to working time regulations, so there's a check on how many hours you're working. But we're only the same as any other member of the public. If we've got a spare day, I coach rugby on a Sunday. I don't get paid for it, but I might like to go into that at some stage, and it could supplement my income. And I guess there's a lot of bobbies who've got degrees or skills that they came into the service with, and unless they use them, they go stale. So I'm quite relaxed about it.
Iain, can I give you a little bit of criticism? You can take this, can't you? Absolutely. I know where it went wrong for you lot. It's when you got rid of the height restriction. What was that all about? Short, fat coppers? No.
It's got a long time. But why do you have to be tall to be a policeman? I understand that you walk into the room. I've got a friend in Devon who's a superintendent who's 6'9". He walks into the room and everything stops. But you don't really need to be...
You can see over crowds when thieves are running away.
Yeah, but if you're small, you might be faster.
Good point.
You're 5'6" and quick over the ground, you might be likely to catch someone rather than a lumbering 6'9" over the ground.
You're right.
So
Iain, listen,
you've
been a good sport. I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much. It's Iain Edwards, chair of the West Midlands Police Federation. I do think it all went wrong when they got rid of the height restrictions. I don't want tiny coppers. I can't stand it. And I know, I've got to say it, aren't they getting younger these days, huh? 08453 009956, £19,000 a year, starting salary. Police and Crime Commissioner Bob Jones wants them to start at £22,000 a year. Is that good enough for a copper? It's not a bad starting salary, is it? It goes up. What do you think? If you are a police officer... or if you've considered being a police officer, but you were put off by the money, give me a call, 08453 009956. Talking about the kinks a bit later on.
Across the West Midlands, call 08453 009956.
BBC WM 95.6.
What was that you were saying about working with professionals? We're talking about the kinks a little bit later on, 08453 009956. But before we do that, let's talk about prisons again this morning. Should prisoners have the right to demand higher quality meals in prison? Should they get treats? Are we too soft on them? Mo's in Tamworth. Morning, Mo.
Good morning, Iain. Before I say what I came on to say, can I first say that I absolutely agree with what you've just said about short policemen.
Oh.
I mean, they are comical.
Short, it's not just short; it's short and fat as well. Now, no disrespect to short people, and some of my best friends actually know fat people. But they're not going to be any good in it when they've got to chase a mugger or someone who snatched an old lady's handbag, are they?
And I've actually seen that for real. I've seen one panting for breath. And he wasn't old. He was not very tall, and he had quite a paunch. So much of a paunch that, you were inclined to ask when it was due. But, I've seen that, and you are right in saying what you said, that it's hard to take them seriously because some of them do look quite funny. Anyway.
They do look funny. Now, listen, Mo, you're not going to phone up with the nonsense saying that the whole reason the country's flooded is because of ditches, are you? The lack of ditches. That was what our previous caller said.
Point. She had a very good point.
We're not flooded because the farmers have filled in their ditches.
No, but they help roads, especially country lanes.
But it's going to help a tiny minority of roads.
Well, it stops that water going somewhere, doesn't it? So every little bit helps. A lot of these old sayings are true. Don't be a put downer.
OK, well, 08453 009956 is the reason we're suffering such bad floods at the moment due to the lack of ditches. But, Mo, what have you called in about?
Iain,
you never know. You might get a farmer on the line.
OK. Can I say what I came on to say?
Please do. I wish you would.
OK. I think, I'm pretty sure, there are all these so-called perks the prisoners get are all to do with calming and diffusing their minds and situations in prison in order to prevent riots.
So things like PlayStations and DVDs, they get those to stop them realising how bored they are and kicking off?
Yeah, and if any situation crops up inside the prisons where privileges or things like that are suddenly cut back or gradually cut back, noticeably cut back, rather than focus on these things that you might take personal in that kind of contained situation, if you've got other things to take your mind off it, and these kind of games and things, usually young men, I think mainly, play for hours and hours. So
well, in that case, we might as well give them a little bit of marijuana as well so they can get stoned out of their boxes. That'll stop them rioting.
That's already happened. I mean, drugs... Well, of course it has. Drugs have been in prisons. The first I heard about it was in the 1980s. That was another ploy, for want of a better expression, to...
Are you saying that the drugs that are available in prisons are sanctioned by the authorities?
Not openly, no.
But covertly, they are sanctioned by the government and the prison authorities to subdue the prisoners?
Yes.
Wow, listen to you and your conspiracy theories.
Well, you're an intelligent person. Why don't you think that?
Because I don't think that the government and the prison authorities would endorse, covertly or otherwise, the use of drugs in prisons. I would like to think, and I know for a fact that they actively encourage drug rehabilitation programmes in some prisons.
Well, for governments contradicting themselves and not always A and B not matching up is the norm, and it has been forever.
Mo, thank you very much indeed. Listen to you and your conspiracy theories. We've got two corkers at the moment. The drugs that are available in prisons, we all know it's there, they are condoned covertly by the government and the prison authorities to keep people in check, to keep them subdued. I don't believe that for a second. And the other theory is the reason that the country is awash with floods is because of the lack of ditches. Because selfish farmers have filled in their ditches. Really? You lot are bonkers, but I'm glad you call in. Thank you. 08453 009956. Police officers, how much are they worth? Craig's in Dudley. Morning, Craig.
Morning, mate.
£19,000 is the standard for a new copper. Bob Jones, the Police and Crime Commissioner here, wants it to be £22,000. What do you think?
I think he's living in another planet. I'm a former soldier. Your average soldier serving in the British Army, infantry soldier, once he's passed out of training, fighting on the front line on Afghanistan, he's only on £14,000 a year to begin with. Right? Why should a policeman earn more, a basic policeman, than a basic soldier when that policeman comes off duty?
Well, isn't the as a soldier, and correct me if I'm wrong, as a soldier, aren't you given more, in inverted commas, perks? You're given accommodation, you're given food.
No, absolutely not. You have to pay for that. That comes out your salary each month. If you're a single soldier and you're living in barracks, as to say, on camp, you have to pay for your food and accommodation.
How much do you pay a month?
It depends what listing your barracks is, whether it's A, B or C listing, which is obviously the quality. If it's a brand new barracks, you're probably looking about £190 a month, including the food on there, for 3 square meals a day. The only time you don't pay for your food and accommodation is one if you're on operations, or two, you're on exercise.
£190 a month for rent and food? Yeah. That's pretty good going, isn't it?
It is pretty good going, but if you're serving a 7-month stint in Afghanistan fighting, you're fighting for 24 hours a day. Right?
Are you telling me you pay rent when you're in Afghanistan?
No, you don't pay nothing at all.
There you go.
In Afghanistan. You do get a few perks, like your Afghan allowance, which is about £3,500, £4,000 bonus on top.
Oh, hang on a second. So you're making loads of money. You're not paying rent when you're in Afghanistan. You're not buying your food, and you get $3,500 a year.
How much would you want to go and fight in Afghanistan for?
Do you know how much I would fight for? Nothing, because I wouldn't sign up for the army, because I'm not a mug.
Oh, is that right, is it? She's saying people who sign up for the army are mugs?
No, I'm saying that people that sign up for the army and then complain... What I'm saying is people who sign up for the army and then complain about the conditions and pay when they know them full well, they could be considered mugs, yeah.
Well, you could say the same for police officers then, can't you? They sign up to be a police officer, like a soldier signs up to be a soldier. So they must be mugs as well. Is that not true?
No, the logic's not quite correct. You're not following it through properly, but I can understand where you're coming from. Yes, people know, but the police officers have just recently had a pay cut, haven't they? That's the thing.
Well, my heart bleeds. It really does for a police officer.
I'm detecting sarcasm there. Why?
A standard police officer is not worth more than a standard soldier. Absolutely not.
I see police officers more. I use the services of police officers more.
Right, a standard soldier, right, basic infantry soldier, gets paid 29 minutes per day.
Say that again. I missed that. Your line dropped off.
A basic infantry soldier serving in the British Army gets paid for 23 hours and 59 minutes per day, 7 days a week. If you've got his basic salary, say 14k a year, and you divide that by 365, and you divide it further by 23.59, you're left with an hourly salary of about
I don't get the 23.59. I don't get that bit.
Yeah, but that's what the British Army gets paid per day, 23 hours and 0.59.
You get a minute off?
Minutes.
But it's not that, is it? You've just said that you get subsidised rent and food when you're in this country, when you're staying in barracks, £190 a month, which is a cracking deal. You get free food and accommodation when you're serving abroad, and you get a bonus for serving abroad as well.
I don't call living in a trench in Afghanistan the Ritz, yeah. That's why it's free. Living off rations as well for 7 months. That's why.
How long have you lived in a trench for?
I'd be sergeant fighting in Afghanistan. We're living a forward operating base, which is essentially a mud fort. And if we're drinking well water, and if we're living off rations,
and how long would you stay in that for?
In a patrol base in Afghan, the guys are living there for 7 months. They're fighting there.
A trench?
That's a static location, and they're operating from there.
A trench?
Hello?
A trench?
Well, you have dug in 45 positions.
Okay.
And that's what you operate from for 7 months.
Okay. But you knew that when you signed up to it, didn't you?
Absolutely. So does a policeman. Well, the policeman.
But then why are you so angry with the policeman then? You seem very angry at the police.
Yeah, I'm a bit miffed because why should coppers get paid extra money, right? And the army is not getting a pay rise.
Why didn't you sign up to be a copper then? If you're jealous of what they're getting, why didn't you try and be a police officer?
I don't want to be a police officer. What I'm saying is, you got an average soldier. Why not put a squaddy soldier up to 16k a year, right? Which is not a fat lot, rather than give it to the police.
Terry, I appreciate. Craig. Sorry, I appreciate your call. I wasn't calling people who joined up the army mugs. I was suggesting that perhaps if you join the army and then complain about the conditions and the pay and you hadn't researched it before, then perhaps you could be classed as a mug. Of course, I'm not calling our armed forces and those who serve mugs. But I'm surprised there that Craig considers... Well, he sounded jealous of the police, that they were getting more money. And it's a tough game, isn't it? It's a tough game to play when you start comparing other salaries. I earn more than both of those gentlemen. What do? I ponce around in a studio a few hours a week. That's not a proper job, is it? It's not a proper job. You jealous of me? 08453 009956. I don't know if you can play the comparison game when it comes to jobs. Can you? Really? Back to prisons, prison food. Terry's in Perry Bar. Morning, Terry.
Hello, good morning.
Have you been in prison?
Yes. My partner is in complete agreement with your lady caller about the calming effect. And
this is the
drugs.
The drugs are. Hang on a second, Terry. Let's go through this one at a time. So you're saying that the drugs that are available in prisons are covertly condoned by the government and the prison authorities?
Absolutely, they get a backhander.
How? The police, the prison authorities get money for it.
Well, they'll get a share of the profits. Yeah. Oh, yes. They're all corrupt. I mean, 2/3 of the prisoners inside shouldn't be in there. They've been set up, wrongly accused. I include myself and my partner in that.
What were you in prison for, Terry?
I'm not going to say that, but I was wrongly set up. I was wrongly accused. And one of the reasons why a lot of prisoners find themselves back inside is because if they're on licence, that's worse than being in prison. And the probation officers couldn't care less. They don't want to know, so they'll do anything humanly possible to pass the book and put them back inside. They're corrupt also.
Did you say your partner's in prison?
He was with me. We shared a cell together. And there's an absolute bond that no one will ever break. Do you want to speak to him?
Yes, I'd love to.
Good morning, mate.
Hello, mate. What's your name?
Chris.
Chris, were you innocent as well?
I was set up by my a few of my ex-family members.
Am I allowed to ask what you did time for?
Yeah, of course you can. Basically, so I was out on the town with my ex-partner, my ex-wife.
Yeah.
Somebody elbowed her in the face. I subsequently grabbed this guy, had it out with him. I took him outside. We had a fight.
Oh, here we go. Okay, so you did do something.
He didn't get locked up, but I did.
Okay, you took him outside for a fight and beat him up?
No, I didn't beat him up. I hit him 3 times.
Well, you should go to prison for that.
No, because he hit me as well.
But you dragged him outside. You initiated it.
No, he initiated it by hitting my ex-partner first.
Okay, well, it sounds like you did do something wrong, and you were naughty. What was the food like? What was it like in prison?
It was horrendous.
I'll feed it to the dog.
It was horrendous. It was stodgy. It was, some of the time, undercooked.
Yeah. They piss in the soup.
Okay. Yes, okay. So do you think that prisoners should get better meals?
Well, yes, I do. But, I mean, at the end of the day, the average school meals, apparently, they get less than the prisoners do. I don't see how they can say that. Because that's been said in the past of school meals, that they get less for their meals than we do as prisoners.
OK, thank you very much. We're going to move on. 08453 00 9956. It didn't sound particularly innocent to me. Brian's in Albury. Morning, Brian.
Morning. Listening to you talking to that soldier
yes.
You did say, I wouldn't sign up because I'm not a mug. The alternative to that is anybody who does sign up is a mug. And
no.
Well, you did say that, didn't you?
I did say that, but you're jumping on one thing. I wouldn't sign up because I'm a mug. I wouldn't take a job that I didn't know what the routine and what the requirements were because I'm not a mug. I wouldn't take any job I didn't like because I'm not a mug. I would look into it. Now, if you're unhappy with having to go to a hot country and fight people and live in what was described as a trench and not get paid much money, then you wouldn't take that job, would you? You'd be a mug if you took that job.
Can we just say, would you be a mug if you took that job? But how many jobs are available in this country? First of all, I'm immensely proud of our troops and what they do. If you go to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital and see some of the injuries that they've suffered, you might think, well, they were mugs, but they've gone out there and they are doing it for the country. They're also doing it for a job. There's no jobs in this country. You hear all this bull. You hear all this bull every day about we've got all these jobs. You try and get one. Try and get a full-time job in this country. So people join up to the army, not because they're mugs, because they want employment. And,
But then you can't... You know when you join the army, you are probably going to go abroad, you're probably going to kill people, you're probably going to have to serve in really awful, awful conditions for not much money. You know that, so you can't really complain about it, can you?
No, but the guy saying that he's using a comparison of 22,000. Now, I also think... The 22,000, if you take all the national insurance out of that and the tax that the governments actually take back, they're not paying them 22,000, are they? Take the tax off, take the national insurance off. So they're not paying them 22,000. And I think after stoppages, a police officer is going to be hard-pressed, to get a mortgage on a house after he's took all his stoppages out of, for just over £400 a week. So I don't think that's particularly good money.
I know, and it's tough to compare the two, isn't it? And I think that it is almost impossible to play that game where you compare one person's salary with another career's salary. Brian, I appreciate your call, thank you. Listen, I wasn't for a second saying that soldiers are mugs. My brother's one and my dad was one. What I'm saying is, if you take a job and you don't research what it entails, then you are a mug. You are a mug. 08453 00 9956 is the telephone number. You can send me emails, iain.lee@bbc.co.uk. It's IAIN. You can also send me texts, 81333. Start your texts WM. We'll be talking about the Kinks in a little bit. I'm very excited. Ray Davies of the Kinks has hinted that they might be getting back together for their 50th anniversary. How awesome is that? Easily the third best British rock and roll band. Want to know what the first two are? Well, I'll tell you after this. It's 11:15 or thereabouts. Let's get the travel now. Here's Liz Saul.
Thank you very much, Ian. It's rather wet outside. The floodwater affecting many main routes around our patch. Certainly a lot of surface water on the motorways, although they're flowing quite nicely in terms of traffic. It's all back to normal on the M6. The delays and the problems have all gone now from around junctions 10A and 10. In Wolverhampton, Furnace Grange Road is still shut because of flooding at its junction with the A454. And in Oddingley, Green Lane remains closed for the same reason between Smite Lane and Plough Lane. If you could update us, call BBC WM 95.6 Travel 08453 002200.
The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
Unwanted Christmas presents, they generally go to the charity shop.
This is when you needed your Noel Edmonds swap shop, weren't it, on a Saturday morning?
Pete Morgan. Paul Franks.
Is it a Happy New Year for rail commuters?
It's happier than it would have been.
You know, if you're on a long-haul flight and you're sitting next to a stink bomb, would you mind off if you just lifted your arm up? That's better.
Danny Kelly. Caroline Martin.
Adrian Goldberg. We let you in through the working class door for a minute. I'm going to kick you out now. I'm the working class bouncer. Derek, out.
When you went through the IVF, were there people around you that thought that you were just selfish?
Somebody once said to me, how does your daughter feel about having an older mother? She said, you're my mummy and I love you.
The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
BBC WM
95.6.
08453 009956 is the phone number if you want to give us a call. Let's go to Craig in Telford. Morning, Craig.
Morning, Ian.
Craig, what do you want to say?
Yeah, just about what you were saying about having a job and then transferring across to a police force. I'm actually a teacher who most will say probably overpaid. Quite open about money. I get paid 35k, and I actually applied to the police force before teaching. There was no places at a time when they weren't recruiting, and I'm looking at going back to the police force, applying back to the police force now, and I just simply wouldn't be able to afford it. I mean, I'm not on a huge mortgage, £600 a month. I don't sort of splurge money away, but I wouldn't be able to take that sort of huge drop in income.
Why are you drawn to the police force, Craig?
It's probably the same as teaching, really. A job I see worthwhile, putting back into the community, all those kind of aspects, really.
But the pay cut will be so huge that you just wouldn't be able to afford it.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously don't take 35k home like the other chap who rang up was saying. After tax and so on, I pay the best part of £600 tax, all the rest of it for student loans and so on. But even sort of 19 starting, or as they're saying, was it 22 they're trying to get?
They're trying to get 22 in the West Midlands, yeah.
I mean, my partner's going down to part-time, so he's just had a child. So financially, it sort of point-blank puts me off it.
What do you think a police officer is worth, then?
It's a tough one. Same as the chap was saying about the army. I mean, I agree there, swings and roundabouts, that 14,000 doesn't seem a lot for putting your life on the line. I guess it's if they want the experience of slightly older people who have certain skills, they've got to perhaps match or make an effort to match the wage of the job they're leaving.
I appreciate your call this morning. Thank you very much. 08453 009956 is the telephone number. Well, what do you think? How much is a police officer worth? I'm joined now by Graham Walker, retired police officer and policing consultant. Morning, Graham.
Good morning to you.
How much were you worth as a police officer?
Oh, you couldn't afford me. There's an interesting argument, isn't it? And the current from government is that the police were paid historically on time served as opposed to skills. They now have developed some sort of profile. Well, they'll pay you on your skill base. I think what they're missing is when, on the other hand, they're saying that we want the court to be neighbourhood policing. Part of being a neighbourhood is to live in that neighbourhood, be known in it, and it is about being time served. You've grown up in it, your kids go to school there, you're part of it. And that simply won't happen with the sort of wages that they're going to start the youngsters on today.
What kind of people is it going to attract? Or what, more importantly perhaps, what kind of people is it going to turn away, a starting salary of between 19 and 22,000?
Well, you will always have people, and I'll be quite honest, as a young man, the attraction of driving a car with blue lights, and I was physically fit, I loved my rugby, so the thought of chasing bad people around the streets was not unappealing. So it will always be, and it is a...
Oh, well done you for your honesty, Graham.
Yeah, and I think anyone who joins the police saying, oh, no, none of that appeals to me, you're probably in the wrong job, because you need to respond. It's particularly at street level, it's from absolute nothing happened to moments of frantic excitement, adrenaline buzz, back down to nothing, and that's the nature of the job, particularly in city policing, such as your Birminghams, your Coventrys and the like. Slightly different perhaps out on the Derbyshire peaks, but it's what you'll get. One thing that does concern me is that for the sort of money they'll pay, as a young police officer, you will be the first on the scene of all sorts of things. Now, if you're hard up, if you're not making ends meet, you can't afford your tax on your car, and it's not about necessarily the corruption of big drugs barons offering you a life in Barbados to turn a blind eye. This is where you will, as a police officer, undoubtedly come upon unguarded sums of money, valuables, all the rest of it. And if you catch that he is without sin, or the person is very, very vulnerable at the wrong time and thinks, well, nobody would miss that. And so there's that opportunity for corruption. Not on the big drugs baron scale, but for low-level, basically good young men and women who, through circumstances, will...
Graham, are you seriously suggesting that these low starting salaries, if a copper goes to a house where there's been a robbery and he sees 70 quid lying on the bedside table, he might pocket it?
There's always been a link between, cause and effect and deprivation. And let's be honest, at 19,000, take off that, they've got to pay 10% for their pensions, that's down to 17,000. Tax that you're down to 250 quid a week. You've got to run a car because you can't use public transport because you work full shifts. Poverty, there's an inexcusable link and academically proven link between poverty and crime. What I'm saying is you trust your police, that what you will do is you'll expose them to all sorts of areas, and it is a possibility. What I'm saying is I'm sure that every young man, I think in my service I only ever encountered one person who was criminally shrewd enough to think, actually, if I join the police, I can manipulate that. And he did it fairly well until he got caught and ended up going to prison for 18 years.
Your son is hoping to train as a police officer. Would you be happy with him starting at £22,000?
I'd rather earn more, but I still think it's a fantastic career. And to anyone who wants to do it, I just hope that people can afford to do it. Because, like I say, because of the shift work, because of everything that goes with it. And what you will do as well, where you get these differentials, where West Midlands are going to say, we'll pay 22,000, a couple of years' time, Staffordshire will start recruiting. They'll just come in and nick the West Midlands officers and go, there you go, you can come back home. You've had your little bit of extra at the start. It's all leveling out now, transfer across. And I just think that's another sad factor, that with the police and crime commissioners, they are political animals, virtually all of them. And if you get a right-wing one, he'll be going with the government and saying, no, we've got to stick to 19,000 austerity. If you get a left-wing one, and your West Midlands man was a Labour politician, nothing wrong with that, but he'll be one saying, no, let's pay them more. And then it'll all swing round. And for years, the police have been apolitical. In fact, you weren't allowed to be a member of a political party. And suddenly now they're being run locally by politicians.
Graham, final question before I let you go. How tall is your son?
Oh, he's 6'2".
Excellent, he's in.
We put him in a grow bag in the old... but of course, that's heightist, and I must abhor that.
Of course you must.
Bad days when we had to be 5'10" and be able to fight, they're gone. And
Graham, I think it's to the detriment of the police force, but I appreciate your time and good luck to your boy. I hope if he chooses that as a career, I hope it goes very well. 08453 009956 on the subject of prisons. Pam's in Kings Norton. Morning, Pam.
Hiya, good morning. Hiya.
Should they get bigger and better meals, PlayStations and things like that?
Well, the point I'm trying to make is that when people's liberty are taken away, I think that's just enough punishment. I've never been in prison. Please God, let me never be in prison. But I've had calls to visit people that have been in prison, and a five-star hotel, it is not. You're interrogated even as a visitor, searched, treated like a criminal just to go in there. The whole establishment is just psychologically awful. It's not a holiday camp because if they're entitled to £10 a week, which I think is the case now, and they have to be subsidising their telephone calls and clocking in for this and clocking in for that, they really have no money in there anyway to enjoy any kind of life. I think we must remember that prisons are largely establishments that are made to make profits. I don't think that. I think that the meals they have, I know for a fact they only have 2 meals a day, and if they're going to subsidise the food that has been described by many prisoners, because I've been on several courses and spoken to prisoners who've even had lifers they call them, and they're saying that the food is near, just grotesque.
It's not good enough. Pam, I appreciate your time. I've got to move on because we've got so much to cram in. 08453 00 9956.
Iain Lee
On BBC WM
95.6. The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
Now, I'm kind of vaguely excited about this. Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, could you tell the difference? Well, this the BBC special series, Stargazing Live, is back for 3 nights this week. Joined now by Morgan Bowers, who's the countryside ranger for Walsall Council. He's running evening sessions on the Bar Beacon in Walsall. Morning, Morgan.
Good morning, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. The TV show, how does it work? It's on TV between 8 and 9. Are we supposed to go and watch it from our back gardens or what?
Well, I think there's lots of ways you can participate, really. A lot of people just, go out in their gardens, but we're doing some free events on Bar Beacon from 9 until 11 each night this week, weather permitting, obviously.
Well, that's the thing. The weather is a big worry, isn't it, this week?
Yeah. And the thing is that with astronomy, even heavy cloud can make it a bit of a no-go. So I'm just keeping my eye on the weather. It looks okay at the moment. It looks partly cloudy, so it should be
If people want to sign up, how do they do it, and what do they need to bring with them?
The best thing that they need to do is to just book a place. If they go to walsall.gov.uk/Walsall looks up. They can just click through and they can do that there. Alternatively, I'm going to be at the Central Library in Walsall this afternoon. People can come and book with me there.
And what are you going to be doing? What will actually happen in the evenings?
Well, it's pretty informal. We'll be showing people different types of free software that they can download for their phones or their PC so that they can, get an idea of the kind of stuff that's available for them to play with at home, and then also bringing some telescopes for people to look through. They don't need to bring anything with them. If people have got binoculars, then I'm going to do a bit of a session on how to sort of navigate around the main constellations with binoculars and stuff. But generally speaking, it's very informal. There'll be teas and coffees and hot chocolates on sale and stuff. But dress warm, because up on Bar Beacon, even on the mild night, it's pretty exposed up there.
My little boys, who are 4 and 2, or will be this month, they love stargazing. They love, I think CBeebies is doing a stargazing special as well, so they're very excited about that. But I don't get it. I don't get Orion's belt and the bear. I can't see those things. What am I doing wrong?
Oh, right, okay. You can always come out one night this week and I can show them to you. I've got like a little laser pointer thing, so I can actually point constellations out in the sky. And I mean, that's part of what we do up on Bar Beacon, and why we sort of call them stargazing events rather than, astronomy. It's just we don't want it to be too overwhelming for people. We want people to feel like it is something that they can do. That starting to, find your way around the sky and get familiar with the constellations is relatively easy to do.
And can you do this cheaply? Do you need to spend thousands of pounds on a top-of-the-range telescope?
Absolutely not. I mean, it does help to have something like binoculars, because that does sort of, increase your enjoyment. You're able to sort of see a lot more, especially because we live in an urban area, so there's quite a bit of urban glow and stuff, so binoculars do help. But they don't have to be expensive ones. And there is plenty that you can do without even binoculars. And we do a lot of meteor watch events up on Bar Beacon, which basically we just show up with chairs wrapped up warm with flasks of tea and just sit on the hill and wait for shooting stars. So,
Morgan, if people want to find out more about this event, is there a website they can look at?
Yes, walsall.gov.uk/Walsall looks up.
Well, I wish you the very best of luck.
There's also a Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Walsall looks up.
Fantastic. I wish you the very best of luck at Morgan Bowers, Countryside Ranger for Walsall Council. That's a good title, isn't it? Countryside Ranger? Excellent stuff. We'll carry on talking about police pay. We'll carry on talking about prisons. Also, the Kinks are the third best British rock and roll band ever. They might be getting back together. Are you excited? And which bands would you like to see reform? 08453 009956.
The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
BBC WM 95.6.
Right, it's 11 o'clock exactly. Let's get the news and sport now. Here's Sarah.
Inmates at a Wolverhampton jail are demanding bigger and better meals. The campaign by inmates at HMP Featherstone was revealed this week in an annual report into the jail. Officials at the prison insist inmates are served a wide-ranging menu, including 5 portions of fruit and veg a day. Ex-prisoner John rang into Iain Lee on BBC WM this morning after serving a 31-year sentence.
I was convicted for drug smuggling. I put some cocaine in my aircraft and flew it back, and they didn't like that. So I think I can say with some experience what the prison food's like. Very stodgy. Everything's bulked up by vegetables. You won't go hungry in prison.
Forecasters are warning people in parts of England, Scotland and Northern Ireland to expect more stormy weather and some snow. People in parts of Dorset were evacuated ahead of high tide last night, whilst around 100 people in Aberystwyth were advised to move to higher ground. The Environment Agency say people should still avoid coastal paths. Consultations on where transport body Centro could save £14 million comes to Solihull today. Options include raising or removing child fares and cutting the ring and ride service. But the All England free bus pass is safe. Mark Langford is from Centro.
Solihull may be one of the more affluent areas of the West Midlands, but there are also areas within Solihull that rely quite heavily on public transport and also things like ring and ride and free travel services. And we're very keen that people give us their views where they think potential savings can be made, because we're not doing this by choice. We have to save money over the next 2 years. That's going to mean some difficult decisions.
People can go and have their say from now until 3 o'clock this afternoon at Mel Square in Solihull. For the first time, the government's published guidance to be sent to every local authority in England to encourage councils to empty people's bins every week. The local government secretary, Eric Pickles, says fortnightly collections are balmy. The singer Phil Everly, who, along with his brother Don, made up the Everly Brothers, has died in California at the age of 74. The duo were famous for their close harmony singing and had a number of hits in the 50s and 60s with Bye Bye Love and Wake Up Little Susie.
Ooh la la, wake up little Susie, wake up little Susie. Well, I told
Phil Everly's wife Patty says he died from a lung condition after a lifetime of smoking, and that she feels heartbroken. In sport, West Brom play in the third round of the FA Cup this afternoon at home to Premier League rivals Crystal Palace, and Aston Villa take on League One at Sheffield United. There'll be full match commentary here on BBC WM 95.6 from 3 o'clock on Albion Palace, and updates on Villa Sheffield with all the build-up starting at midday. Weather-wise, sunny spells this afternoon, but we're still going to have scattered showers in places and highs of 8 degrees Celsius, that's 46 degrees Fahrenheit. Tonight, showers will die out eventually, leaving clear spells. Temperatures will be dropping to below freezing. BBC WM 95.6 News. There's more online at bbc.co.uk/WM.
The Voice. The Voice.
The Voice.
The Voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
They have kids and they want somebody else to keep them.
Social services shouldn't exist.
I know quite a few people that have had pay cuts in their wages just to hang on to their job.
Iain Lee, Saturdays
9 till 12.
BBC WM 95.6.
Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC WM 95.6. Still taking your calls about prisons. Are we too soft on prisoners? Some of them are demanding bigger and better meals. Well, do they deserve it? Also, how much is your local police officer worth? Starting salary £19,000. The Police and Crime Commissioner for the West Midlands wants to increase that to £22,000. Is that enough? Or do you think maybe they get too much? We had a call from one soldier who earns far less than that. and says it's not fair that the police get that much money. Before midday, we will talk about the Kinks. How excited are you? They might be getting back together. And what bands would you like to see? But before that, an interesting story about online abuse. Give us a call, 08453 00 9956.
Have your say.
Across the West Midlands, call 08453 00 9956.
BBC WM 95.6.
Now, police have confirmed they won't investigate insults made online against an NHS campaigner after she was named in the Queen's New Year's Honours List. Julie Bailey, who was awarded a CBE this week, said she was hurt by comments made on the Support Stafford Hospital Facebook page, which accused her of wrecking health services in the town. The posts on the social network site have since been removed. Well, Mrs Bailey has moved out of her hometown after she claims she faced hostility from some local people. Her Cure the NHS campaign, which exposed failings at the hospital, including those surrounding her mother's death, triggered an inquiry and led to the Mid Staffordshire NHS Trust being put into administration. Well, Julie joins me on the line now. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
Julie, it must have been a mixed week for you. Tell me what's happened since you were awarded the CBE in the New Year's Honours List.
Well, I've been congratulated from all over the world, to be perfectly honest. People from within the NHS have been making contact with not only me but the group, saying what a huge difference we've made to the NHS, and that the culture is going to change. You know, things will change and it will be safer thanks to the work that we've put in. But at the same time, I've had a small number of people who have criticised us. Totally unjust. You know, people really don't realise how hard we have worked to get the hospital to the place that it is now. It's a much safer place than it was when my mum was in 2007. Unfortunately, it's got to the position where it's safer, but it's not safe and sustainable. And this is very often the case with these small general hospitals. And I think that's why we had the situation we did at Mid-Staffs. It was trying to be jack of all trades and master of none. What the proposal is that people will travel to get the specialist services where there are specialist doctors at North Staffs, 20-odd miles away. This is something that goes on all over the country. People travel to specialist centres. But unfortunately, the people of Stafford, they really don't understand patient safety.
And is that why you think you're getting the abuse, Julie? Because you are suggesting or trying to implement a change so that some services close down in that hospital and people have to travel?
Well, I'm not suggesting that. That's what professionals, that's what specialists have said is the safest option. Now, I can't argue with that, because I haven't got the knowledge.
Then why are you getting abuse? I'm confused by this. I must be missing something.
As well, because they say that I've exaggerated what went on at Stafford. Now, my evidence was given at the Mid-Staffs public inquiry, and I gave that evidence on oath. I'm an honest person. There's no exaggeration. Mid-Staffs was absolutely horrendous. I spent 8 weeks on that ward with my mum, fighting to keep her alive, but also other patients. There was no fluids for them, there was no foods, they went without medication. Now, this has gone through the Mid-Staffs public inquiry. It has been proven. There are too many people who have said the same thing, but they continue to dispute it.
Who is abusing you and what have they been saying?
Sorry?
Who's been abusing you and what have they been saying?
Well, I really don't know, to be honest. I'm thousands of miles away, and I just get people contact me and saying that I've been abused on the social networking sites. I don't look. I did look at it because this has been happening for a long time, since the hospital started to be threatened, their services. And I did look at somebody's blog, and to be perfectly honest, it made me so ill for a few days. The hurtful things they were saying about my mum was old anyway. You know, what did I expect? Well, my mum what I expected was for my mum to go into a hospital and for her to be safe. and for not to a human rights to be abused. That's what I expected. But I was reading them, this was about 2 years ago, 18 months ago, when all this started, and it made me so ill to think that people behave that way, can even think under those, that this isn't true, what happened. After all that's gone on, it seems that there are still people in denial.
And the abuse has picked up again since you received the CBE?
That's right, yes. They're saying I don't deserve a CBE. It's just beyond, really. I mean, the CBE to us will help us as a group to take forward patient safety. It will keep it in the limelight. Because, I say we really should hang our heads in shame the way as a society we treat older people. This will help to improve patient safety, not only for older people, but for everybody within the NHS. The mid-staff's public inquiry will make a huge difference.
Julie, I appreciate talking to you this morning. I know you're somewhere very nice, so thanks for taking the time. Julie Bailey, who was awarded a CBE this week, partly because of her work with the Cure the NHS campaign. 08453 009956.
Iain Lee.
On BBC WM.
95.6. The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
It's been a busy show this morning. Lots to talk... The thing about New Year's honours, if you'll indulge me just a second, thank you. Do we really... And not in any way directing this at Julie, who we just spoke to, but do we really need them anymore? It always seems such an odd, old-fashioned thing that we're going to make... Blooming Penelope Keith was made a dame. Now, all of the under 30-year-olds in the country went, who? All of the over 30s went, what, the woman from To the Manor Born has been made a dame? Why? What has she done in the last 25 years? It seems an odd thing, doesn't it, that they are handing out Sir Paul McCartney? Sir Tom Jones? Boy, oh boy, if you'd heard some of the stories about Tom Jones, he had a nickname for little Tom Jones. He used to call it Wendell. I know, incredible, isn't it? It's incredible. I was just reading a book and Tom Jones and Wendell popped up, if you pardon the expression. Sir Tom Jones, I find it very, very odd. 08453 009956 if you want to give me a call on that. Adam is in Solihull. Good morning, Adam.
Morning, Lee. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. You want to talk about police pay? Go on.
The police pay, where's this money coming from? The private sector cannot find the money to fund the public sector to pay these wages. The wages in the private sector are so low anyway because we can't afford to pay these wages. Yet the public sector just thinks it's just the public sector mentality of, oh, it's only money. We can see that through the local authorities on the way they waste money. Look at the website made for the Birmingham City Library. £1.2 million to make that. The money's just not there. The public sector needs to change their mentality of wages, pensions and everything. The private sector cannot afford to do this.
But do you think it's fair, Adam, that coppers, who some people would argue are a waste of space, but I think, for the most part, do a really good job?
I'd be one to agree that most coppers are a waste of space, yeah.
Really? Tell me why.
Because I don't think that they carry out their job well enough. I think that they look for easy, cheap quips rather than getting on and doing the nitty-gritty, the bad jobs, the thing... an example of standing on a quarry and watching two young children die because they didn't have the authorities of the health and safety to get their kit off and get in there and try and save those two children. That sort of mentality...
We can find...
I just don't think... from a human's point of view, that sort of mentality shows me that any adult would have got in there and tried to save those children, and then you've got two police officers who are paid to serve the public. So many police officers think that they are the law or above the law, but they're there to serve the law and uphold
the law. But Adam, we can all find examples of people who have done their job badly, who have made incredibly bad choices. Most of my dealings with the police, and unfortunately I've had quite a few, most of them have been excellent. When my mum got robbed by two of her carers, the police bent over backwards to help me and my mum.
I think that there may be a few coppers that are quite good, but I think are so mean, and when you speak to them, it's so arrogant and obnoxious, and they just come over with such an attitude. Probably approaching your mum would be a different aspect to approaching an everyday person on the street. They give me an aura of, we don't really care. It's not really our job. It bewilders me on how they think that they can carry on, and then to say that they were start off with a trainee at £22,000 a year. That's a phenomenal wage.
Adam, thank you very much indeed. I appreciate your call. Adam in Solihull thinks the police are a waste of time, waste of money. Wow, I'm surprised by that. Most of my contact with the police have been great. There was one where I swore at a copper because she was a detective and she was completely useless and wasn't taking the situation I presented to her, which was potentially a very dangerous situation, wasn't taking it seriously. I had to go at her. The other incidents with the police have been fantastic. Fantastic. A waste of time and money? Really? 08453 009956. It's 11:15. Means we need to get the latest travel news now. Here's Liz.
Thank you very much, Ian. As you make your way around, you'll find this flooding still causing problems this morning. And Wolverhampton Furnace Grange Road is shut at its junction with the A454. In Oddingley, Green Lane remains closed between Smite Lane and Plough Lane. An awful lot of surface water around affecting some of the motorway and main routes as well around Birmingham and the Black Country. As you head to Dudley, it's looking busy on the A461 as you head towards Scott's Green Island and further along to Prawn Island. Little pockets of congestion along that stretch. Just be mindful, there's FA Cup third round action locally this afternoon. Aston Villa are at home at Villa Park and West Bromwich Albion are at home at the Hawthorns, both 3 o'clock kickoffs. So it's looking okay for now, but obviously expect congestion with rather large crowds expected, and also match day restrictions are coming into place about an hour or so before kickoff. If you can update us, call BBC WM 95.6 travel 08453 002288.
The West Midlands' biggest phone-in. A sharp rise in the number of attacks on NHS staff.
I've been an ambulance man for 17 years.
You've been threatened with a gun?
Yeah.
Adrian Goldberg.
She's got 8 children complaining that the benefits cap means that she might now be evicted.
These people are greedy. They have kids and they want somebody else to keep them.
I think the government have got to stop having these people having kids for cash.
Mornings with Adrian Goldberg.
Monday to Friday.
9 till 12.
On BBC WM 95.6.
And suddenly it's 17 minutes past 11. Who'd have thunk it? Hasn't the morning flown by? I'm here until 12 o'clock every Saturday. This is Iain Lee. Lots to talk about. We'll take your calls on the kinks and bans reforming. We'll also talk more about police pay and prisons. But before that, police have confirmed they won't investigate insults made online against an NHS campaigner after she was named in the Queen's New Year's Honours list. Julie Bailey, who was awarded a CBE this week, said she was hurt by comments made on the Support Stafford Hospital Facebook page, which accused her of wrecking health services in the town. Well, the posts on Facebook have been removed. Mrs Bailey's moved out of her hometown after she claims she faced hostility from some local people. Her Cure the NHS campaign, which exposed failings at Stafford Hospital, including those surrounding her mother's death, triggered an inquiry and led to the Mid Staffordshire NHS Trust being put into administration. Does Mrs Bailey's CBE surprise you? Should she be receiving an honour? We'll talk more about CBEs in general in a second, but I'm joined now by Cheryl Porter, who is from the Support Stafford Hospital campaign. Morning, Cheryl.
Good morning.
Cheryl, these posts were put on your campaign's Facebook page. What did they say?
Well, actually, I don't know because I didn't look at them. We have somebody monitoring our Facebook page, and we have over 3,500 people that comment on that page, and we always have the rule that there is no abusive comments. If there are any that come through, they get deleted. And that's what we've always done, and they were deleted. So, you see, the way I look at it is, I feel that our campaign started 2 years ago to stop the closure of A&E overnight. And what Julie did in highlighting the crisis times at Stafford, the government stepped in, a new board was put at the hospital. Money was invested a few years ago into the hospital because of what had happened. And because of that, our hospital had a turnaround. And in the last 2 years, our hospital now is one of the top 15 in the country. So for us as a campaign group, you know, Julie, she got the government to look at our hospital. Things were put right there. So, yeah, you know, she's had an award given.
Did she deserve that CBE?
Well, I think for the work that she put in when she started campaigning, yes, I do.
I'm curious, no one's been able to tell me what these Facebook comments said. The person who moderated it must have given you an idea what the message, the thrust of them were.
No, I don't like to know things because I'm not an abusive person.
No, but if you run a Facebook page, then you kind of need to know what people are saying, don't you?
Not really. No, because
You don't think?
Because I know what we're campaigning for. And we are campaigning for the hospital we have today. We've all, you know, we know there was a crisis time at our hospital. We know things happen there. I've always acknowledged that. We've always acknowledged that in our group. But what we know is that because of what happened at Stafford, there was money, you know, a new board was put in, there was money invested by the government, and our hospital and the staff there, they have worked so hard to turn our hospital around. And that is why in April we had 50,000 people march in Stafford because of the hospital we have today. They know that we are losing a safe, wonderful hospital, and the town need those acute services. So to me, I don't like reading things like that, so I'm best just concentrating on what we're doing, and we are fighting for a safe hospital, which we have.
Did the people who put the comments on, they get blocked?
Yes, we don't let them back on.
OK. Well, Cheryl, I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much indeed. Cheryl Porter from the Support Stafford Hospital campaign. What do you think? 08453 009956 is the telephone number if you want to give us a call on that. We can expand it slightly as well to the New Year's Honours List. I don't get it. I've never quite got it. Why does... First of all, I don't understand why celebrities get knighted or dames or become dames or any of those things. I don't quite understand that at all. Hey, guess what? Being a pop star, you get paid quite well, apparently. Yeah, you get paid quite well. 08453 009956. Isn't it time we scrapped the New Year's Honours List? We got rid of it completely. What purpose does it serve? It's 2014, nearly. It's 2014, for goodness sakes. We don't need those kind of things, do we? It seems a bit old-fashioned, a bit elitist. Or if you're going to give them out to people who work in a hospice, or nurses, or police officers, or charities. You understand what I'm saying? That give it to people who do a proper job. Being into the manor born, as Penelope Keith was, 25, 30 years ago? Doesn't really warrant her being made a dame, does it? 08453 009956 is the telephone number if you want to give me a call on that. It really does seem to me that the whole New Year's honour thing is an outdated, old-fashioned nonsense that we can best do without. Sir Elton John, anybody? Do you know what he got up to in the 70s? Man, he kept Columbia in business single-handedly. 08453 009956. You can send me a text, 81333. Start your text WM. Before midday, I keep promising this, but before midday, we will be talking about the excellent, exciting news that the Kinks may be getting back together. How awesome would that be? I love the Kinks, the third best English band. You want to know the first two? Well, at number 2, it's The Who, and at number 1, it's the Beatles. The Rolling Stones don't even make the top 100. Awful band. Awful. What bands would you like to see reform? 08453 009956. One of my favourite bands of all time, the Monkees. I know. They get back together every now and then, and it's just a joy to see them. Sometimes it doesn't work. Do you remember when the Beatles, despite them being the best British band ever, do you remember when they got back together in 96, was it? To record some old John Lennon songs. Free as a Bird and Real Love, I think. it didn't work. It didn't really work, did it? They were a little bit stinky. So sometimes it doesn't work. Phil in Aston has emailed in. Iain, the Kinks reforming would be all well and good if Ray Davies could still sing. Did you see him at the Olympics closing ceremony? He couldn't sing a note in tune. Well, he's never been the best singer in the world. He's always been a little bit flighty around the melody. It was embarrassing. The same can be said for the likes of Paul McCartney, who's always rolled out on such occasions to sing Hey Jude. He can't sing anymore. Why can't we collectively just admit that? Great money-making scheme for them, but I'll be giving it a miss. Ray Davies isn't the best singer anymore. Dave Davis, who I interviewed a couple of years ago, I bet he's not the best guitar player anymore. He's a very fragile, frail gentleman when I saw him. I had a stroke. I had a couple of strokes, I think. Could barely walk. But sometimes you go and see these bands, they're not going to be as good as they were in 1967, for example, but you go and see them for the emotion of the moment, don't you? 08453 009956 is the phone number. 81333. Start your text WM. On the subject of police pay, it's John in Withall. Morning, John.
Hi, good morning, Ian. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, John. What would you like to say?
Well, I heard a gentleman on earlier on. I didn't quite get the full gist of his conversation. I missed part of it, but I think he said he was a rugby coach.
There was a police officer who says he also ex-police officer who says he coaches rugby at the weekends.
Right, so he wouldn't sort of be part of my query, but anybody else that's sort of still a serving officer and is carrying out another job, and just supposing in that instance it was something on the physical side and they were to injure themselves, say, break or turn an ankle, who would they expect to pay their sick pay?
Well,
would it be the police service or the other employer that...
That's a very good question.
Job for?
I stopped there because I thought I knew the answer and I realised I don't know the answer. He was telling us that there are lots of serving police officers who do second jobs, mini-cabbing, might be landlords or plumbing, things like that. Does that concern you?
Yeah, I mean, it sort of... I was in the police force myself many years ago, and it was that was your career, that was your single job. You weren't allowed to have another job. I do know there was some that used to moonlight. I know one guy that used to do painting and he fell off a ladder. But it was many years ago, and it was known but nothing was said. Yeah, and he was
£19,000 a year starting salary. They're trying to get it to £22,000 a year in the West Midlands. Is that enough?
It's a good salary, but I think the police force today is not what it was in the 70s. It's to me, it's a financial institution. It's more about finances than actual fighting crime and being committed to doing that, fighting and preventing crime.
So it's more about ticking boxes than opposed to doing what you think the police should be doing? Yeah.
John? I know from my own experience, from the job I went on to do when I left the police force, that, trying to get... And I know that the demands on the police service have changed considerably, but at the same time, when you had a serious matter such as a burglary, trying to get somebody to attend wasn't as it was when I was a serving officer. It was downgraded.
John, thank you very much indeed. 08453 009956. How much is a copper worth? Really? We had one call earlier on who said they're a waste of time and money. They're arrogant, they're narrow-minded, they think they are the law. Well, has that been your case? If you've had dealings with the police, could you give me a call and let me know what it's been like? Most of my dealings have been pretty good. One detective... I told her to naff off in no uncertain terms because I didn't think she was taking things seriously. And I think she knew that she wasn't taking things seriously. There was a bloke threatening to kill me. And she kind of half-heartedly looked into it. And then she said... this is what she said. This is when I swore at her. She said, we've not been able to find out anything about this guy. So all I would suggest is you install CCTV cameras outside your house and give us a call if anything happens. Now, this guy had sent me several emails saying he was going to shoot me as I got out of my car, shoot my wife, right? It's obviously a nut job, but this is what he was saying. And I said, what, you want me to call you if I see anything suspicious? Yes, please do. What, if I, get out of my car and I see a gentleman pulling a gun out of me, I should call you then? Yes, that would be a good idea. That's when I swore at her. That's when I told her to naff off. But for the most part, my dealings have been pretty good with the police. And there are some dodgy ones, but the majority, I like to think, I have to believe, are there for the right reasons and enjoy the job and enjoy helping people and want to make the world a better place. And it's a dangerous job. Doesn't happen too often, but we do hear about coppers getting stabbed or getting killed or getting blown up. 08453 009956. Your experiences with the police, please. Carl's in Tamworth. Morning, Carl.
Morning, Ian. You all right?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Carl. What do you want to say?
Yeah, well, talking about police pay, there's a lot of different things to take into account, I think. Firstly, I think 19 grand a year is a pretty good salary to start with. But it should be looked at regionally. I mean, I've worked for the police I did work for them for over 25 years between two different forces, West Mids and Warwickshire. In civilian jobs, I have to say, not as a bobby. I think police who work in cities, things like that, they do deserve more money than the guys who work out there in the sticks. And I know I'm going to cause a bit of trouble saying that, but... Tell
me why.
Well, I mean, if you're out there in the city, yeah, you are facing danger on a daily basis, I think. I've seen some of the scumbags they have to deal with. But out there in the sticks, a lot of the police work that I saw going on was attending parish council meetings, attending schools, talking to school kids about stranger danger, all that sort of thing. It's very, very little to do with dealing with day-to-day scropes, shall we say. And I think that needs to be taken into account. It should be looked at regionally. I don't think the guys who work out in the sticks should get the same pay as a bobby who's looking at somebody shooting or stabbing him on a daily basis.
But then there are police officers, I guess, in towns who might not get to see any, in inverted commas, action, as it were. Do we pay them less?
Well, it certainly needs to be looked at on sort of on national crime figures. I mean, West Midlands is going to have a much higher crime rate than North Warwickshire, where I used to work. Bobbies out there, they really, I've got to be honest, they've got a nice, cushy little number there, a really, really cushy little number. It's so different. And I think when you compare the police as well to the armed forces, we must have some of the lowest paid armed forces in the Western world. And yet, we're supposed to have the best armed forces. It's a disgrace.
I was shocked when the caller said it was 14 grand a year. That's nothing, is it?
That's right. It's disgusting. It's just unbelievable. And these guys are out there getting blown to bits on our behalf daily. And we don't seem to bat an eye. We don't think anything about their salary. And yet, with the police pay is a regular thing that pops up. It's wrong. Our soldiers are undervalued. The police are overpaid, I think.
Carl, we've got to end it there because I've got to move on and get some more calls in, but thank you. Carl saying the police are overpaid. So if you're a copper in the sticks, you have got a cushy little number because all you're doing is caring the community. What do they call it? Neighbourhood watch kind of stuff. Neighbourhood watch meetings and parish council meetings. I would so love to talk to you if you do or have policed out in the sticks. 08453 009956 is the telephone number. Give me a call on that. Do you agree with that? Really? You got a cushy little number? On the subject of New Year's honours, it's Polly in Erdington. Good morning, Polly.
Hi, good morning.
It's time to scrap New Year's honours, isn't it?
I think they have their uses, and in particular regards to Julie, I think she did a very commendable thing. People, encounter that sort of thing on a daily basis, and it takes somebody with, nerve, commitment,
This was Julie Bailey, awarded a CBE this week,
yeah.
Yes.
I think she well deserved it. There are people who deserve it. There are others who we question why they get it, but definitely deserved. And
Penelope Keith. Do you even know who Penelope Keith is?
Oh, yes, to the manor born, yeah.
She's a dame now.
Well, that compared to Julie and what she did, her sort of contributions is insignificant in terms of the benefits, to people. And
if you're going to give them, go and give it to people who work with, in a hospice for children. Go and give it to the bus driver that saved a woman's life. Don't give it to actors and actresses.
There could be something to be said. I mean, sometimes somebody who's an artist or an actress or whatever may provide a sort of connection to, say, somebody who's isolated. So there's sort of swings and roundabouts. But on the balance of, worth, for me, Julie deserves it.
I appreciate your call, Polly. Thank you very much. 08453 009956. It does. Listen. If I were offered one, of course I'd take it. Oh, I'm a complete hypocrite. Oh, complete hypocrite. I'd totally take it. You'd have to. I'd take it from my mum. And I'd take my mum along to the palace and it'd be wonderful. And you would have to call me Sir Iain Lee, Sir Iain. But giving them out to celebrities and pop stars, Sir Mick Jagger, for goodness sakes. Don't we remember what happened in the 60s? He made awful music with that terrible band, the Rolling Stones. To give it out to overpaid pop stars and actors and actresses and comedians, it strikes me as a little odd. Give it to that nurse that helps dying children. Give it to people who are actually doing things that are important. As much as I like pop music, it's not important, is it? Really? 08453 009956 on the subject of the police and their pay. Colin's in Kidderminster. Go on, Colin, what have you got?
Hello there, Ian. Yes, I'd just like to, before we start, we couldn't do without the police, but I totally agree with what Ian said earlier. They haven't got no idea how to speak to people. Most of the police I've had dealings with are usually from a sort of middle-class background. They're not working-class people. They don't know how to correspond with people. They just got some sort of serious attitude. They really need to have a bit of, people skills when they start talking to people, whether they're a criminal or not a criminal. Speak to people how you want to be spoken to.
What have they said to you then, Colin, that's made you uncomfortable?
It's just generally when you get pulled in, we've got these new plastic police officers now. What are they, CPSO officers? They're like a chocolate spoon. They're absolutely useless. They've got no balls. They need to go down JJB and buy some because, we're out here on the streets. We have to defend ourselves. If we defend ourselves and we come over too heavy, then we're arrested for defending ourselves. They just haven't got a clue how to speak to people.
Colin, thank you very much. 08453 009956. I've been spoken to in an arrogant way by police when they stop you in the street. I've been spoken very politely. But don't they sort of need to do that? Don't they sort of need to do that so that there is a gap between us and them? By the way, whenever I walk past the coppers with my boy, who loves the police, they always wave and they'll always let us go and look at their motorbike or sit in their car. Always. Oh, they're great for that. 08453 009956. Derek's in Droitwich. Morning, Derek.
Good morning.
Derek, what would you like to say?
Police, it all depends on. I come in on the back of it, if you've ever been on a picket line or anything like that, you'll see the police, the real arrogance of the police. I was there in '72 and in the miners' strike when we went up to Albury, and they really are something else. Some of them are.
Why? What happened? Tell me your experience.
Well, when Scargill was going down to Saltley Gate, we were the car factories were helping him out because he wasn't a well-known man then, and we come down there. Now in the morning, you could stand on the picket line at the coal place, where he was at Saltley. Then ever dinner time, they'd draw the line and then they'd push it over the line and throw you in the Black Maria. And at Aldgrave, that was diabolical. That was what they used to do. They charged them, they stopped. But this business about we're all free. Well, yeah. Mrs. Thatcher proved that you ain't free. She stopped movement of labour of any person.
But you're talking about stuff.
To another.
You're talking about stuff, Derek, that happened 30 years ago. The police have evolved and changed since then, haven't they?
I've retired now, so, I can only go on about the experiences. And that's what people hate. Wales, some of them miners, never, when you got the village, but they never spoke to him now. Do you know that?
So you think, do you think they get paid too much then?
I don't really know their pay scale, so
It's 19 grand for a starting officer.
No, that ain't a lot.
Yeah, you're happy with that?
Yeah, okay. No. I don't think anybody can live, on at least 25,000 a week is about 25,000 a year. Sorry, is about adequate, you know, I'd say fairly just adequate.
Derek, thank you very much for that. 25 grand a week. Now, that would be awesome, wouldn't it?
Ian Lee.
On BBC WM.
95.6. The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
Now, here's a couple of TV shows you may be a huge fan of. I don't quite get either of them. Big battle on TV this week. Sherlock Holmes fans were kept in suspense for 2 years. The detective supposedly died at the end of the last series in 2012, but he reappeared on our screens on Wednesday, very much alive. Then on Thursday, Birds of a Feather returned after being away for 16 years. Well, this morning I want to know, which TV show did it for you over Christmas, over the New Year? 08453 009956. And if you can explain the attraction of either of those two TV shows, let me know. Andrew Billen is a TV critic for The Times. Morning, Andrew.
Good morning, Ian.
Sherlock brought in 9.2 million viewers. I watched some of it for the first time. I didn't really get it. I didn't like Sherlock.
Funny enough, I'm writing a review for Monday's paper just about this, really, because I've just seen the second episode. And yes, he was so arrogant, it kind of seeped into the programme. So you got, as everybody knows now, 3 explanations for the non-death rather than one, and left a lot of people baffled. It's Sherlock, the man, is always trying to show how clever he is, and it seemed that the programme was trying to puzzle us too and impress us with its dazzling intellect. But I have to say, tomorrow's programme is set at John Watson's wedding day, in which Sherlock gives a terrible wedding speech, but simultaneously manages to prevent a crime and solve a crime, is so much more human and so much funnier that all my reservations are cancelled, and it's going to be a 5-star review from me. I think the attraction of it is that it is just so dazzlingly made and well acted. It's not really like television at all. It
looks stunning. It looks stunning, and both of the actors, Freeman and Cumberbatch, or whatever his name is, they both play it brilliantly. I just didn't like his hair. I didn't like his smugness, and I don't like the bit when he touches someone and the words come up on the screen.
Well, when that was first shown, 3-4 years ago, that was really rather original, and then since then loads of TV programmes do it. I mean, I don't want to give too much away about tomorrow's show, but there is a fantastic drunk scene in it, and the captions come up again over a sitting room, but they're all blurred and in double vision. So it's a very, very witty programme.
Do they give a definitive answer?
I mean, I was just watching Graham Norton last night, and the guy does look like an otter, so that's all part of it.
Do they give a definitive answer for how he survived?
No, but I think they did I think they did on New Year's Day. I think it was the third explanation.
Right,
I don't think you can just watch a little bit in and you don't get it. You've got to watch it, rewind it, watch it again, and then...
I've got 2 kids, Andrew. I've got 2 boys. I haven't got time to do that. Birds of a Feather has come back, which when I heard this, I was very, very surprised. But it pulled in the figures, 8 million viewers.
Yes, well, unlike Sherlock, I'm completely stumped. It's inexplicable, isn't it? It was a terrible programme. It wasn't even that great 16 years ago when it was last on. But yes, it did incredibly well for ITV on Thursday night, as did the revival of Open All Hours on Boxing Day for the BBC. And I see there's going to be a little special edition of Only Fools and Horses. It does seem that out there, among people slightly older than me, and a lot older than you, I suspect, there are people who like old-fashioned sitcoms with studio audiences in which rather broadly drawn characters exchange insults, but in a kind of witty and unlikely and unnatural way.
Permission to speak freely, Andrew. I don't find Only Fools and Horses funny. I never have.
No, it never was very funny.
I'm glad you said that.
My colleague Caitlin Moran said, really, these Del Boy and so on, they're really just extras from Minder. About as interesting as that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I guess the test for Birds of a Feather will be episodes 2 and 3. Whether people will have watched out of curiosity, it's whether they can sustain that viewing figure.
Exactly, yes. People will have gone back out of nostalgia to see it. I suspect there'll be an ebbing away. And I believe you're involved in Big Brother. There's so many ways to show working class now, and you think really of the only way is Essex and so on. You know, this rather formal, dated approach to Chigwell and aspiration and stuff just seems irrelevant now. And I suspect that people, as they watch the series, will begin to think this is talking about a kind of television and a kind of society that's long gone.
Very quickly, you mentioned Big Brother. I am vaguely connected with it. Rylan is actually my boss. Did you see it last night? What do you think of the lineup? Any good?
They seem quite, from what I've read in the papers, they seem quite impressive names, enough to make my wife say, "Oh, they've got him or her on." So, I think everybody in TV criticism predicted it would die on Channel 5, and it pulls in it really keeps their audience averages up.
Andrew, nice to talk to you. Thank you very much for your time. Andrew Billin, a TV critic for The Times. Birds of a feather, 8 million viewers, 32% of everybody who was watching television on Thursday was watching that. Wow. Right, it's coming up to 11:45. Let's get the latest travel news now. Here's Liz.
Thank you very much, Ian. As you head to Wolverhampton, Furnace Grange Road is still shut because of flooding at its junction with the A454. Trescott Ford has flooded, police confirm. Oddingley Green Lane still remains closed for the same reason between Smite Lane and Plough Lane. We're getting reports of some sort of traffic problem on Newlands Lane in Cannock at the junction with Cannock Road. Police tell us they are on the way to the scene. Into Birmingham is looking quite congested now along the A34 around Great Bar and Queslett Road. Hagley Road is congested towards Five Ways Island. And obviously just be mindful, you've got home games this afternoon. The FA Cup third round sees Aston Villa face Sheffield United at Villa Park, and the Baggies are at home to Crystal Palace at the Hawthorn, so you'll expect extra traffic around there and the match day restrictions coming into force in the next hour or so. If you can update us, call BBC WM 95.6 travel 08453 002288.
Have your say on your club.
Is Paul Lambert on planet Mars? The crux of it is we're not getting any shots on target. Got a load of tripe on the pitch. It's abysmal. He don't push it. He's got more productivity for West Bromwich Albion. Dino's done a great job. Absolute travesty. That midfield is absolutely pathetic. We can't buy a winner's arm. It was absolute garbage.
More Wolves.
More Baggies.
More Blues. More Saddlers. More Villa.
The West Midlands' biggest football phone-in. After every game and every weeknight from 6. BBC WM 95.6.
There we go. I pressed the wrong button. I do apologise. Hopefully you can hear me now. I was just sat in a room talking to myself. This is Iain Lee, BBC. I've only got another 12 minutes, then a professional takes over. Daz Hale. Morning, Daz.
Oh, I think that's pushing it a little bit. Happy New Year. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. You have a good one?
Yeah, it's great, yeah. So I had a bit of an early night on New Year's Eve because I was here doing the breakfast show. But now it's been good, and it's good to be back here as well. And I, for one, am pleased to hear that the Kinks may well be reforming. He's one of our great songwriters, is Ray Davies.
Can you believe when I mentioned this to Molly earlier on about 9:15, she pulled her face and went, ugh.
Well, you know, each to their own, but come on. Ray Davies obviously and his brother who haven't got on it. Most of these rock and roll brothers tend to fall out and then get back together again.
Well, the Everleys, if it's about Phil Everly dying, they hated each other for a part of their career.
And we all know that Oasis are going to get back together at some point, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be a Glastonbury job, that is.
I suspect, I've always said this, that the Oasis split up is a very canny long-term business deal. They know exactly what they're doing.
Take a few years off, go and do the solo stuff, and then we'll do a Stone Roses on it, get back together, and it'll be like, you know, they'll be absolutely immense and absolutely huge, and it'll be ka-ching. Oh, a couple of cynics like us, Ian.
I know. Cynics. We've been around the block. Daz, what's on the show today from 12?
Yeah, well, obviously, all your big match build-up. We've got, as you heard there in the trail a few moments ago, Albion against Crystal Palace in the FA Cup, Villa against Sheffield United, Tamworth against Halifax as well. So building up to those games. Looking back on the Wolves match last night, Mel Eves will be joining us to let us know what he thinks about last night's performance, the result, and the way that Lee Griffiths can't get in the team. And being as we're talking about cups today, I want to know, have you ever been to a cup final? It can be an FA Cup, a League Cup, a European final, a non-league final. Have you ever been to a cup final? I want to know about that. And also, I was reminiscing with my mate over Christmas, because we live in Birchwood, and when we were kids, we knocked on the door of a former, well, he was Warsaw's centre-forward at the time. His name was Terry Austin, and we asked him for his autograph, and he was lovely, and we were all embarrassed. So today, footballers who live near you.
Oh, that's a great one. I love that.
And have you ever met them? Have you knocked on their door? Have you met them in the corner shop? So footballers who live near you, and have you ever been to a cup final? We're on the way from midday.
Daz, cracking stuff. Enjoy the show. Speak to you next week. Ta-ta. Right, I like that. Footballers who live near you. 08453 009956 is the telephone number. Last 10 minutes of this nonsense. Let's go to Kevin in Kings Norton. Wants to talk about police pay. Morning, Kevin.
Hello, morning. I used to be a prison officer. I was one of these guys that go around and collect the prisoners from the cells and transport them.
Yeah.
And I've dealt with a lot of police officers. And there's good and bad in everybody, but I would say 98% of all police officers, you couldn't pay them enough. They've got a terrible job. It's dangerous. It's frustrating. You've got kids in the faces that they can't really do much about because they're underage, and they're kicking cell doors all night long, and they're having to put up with this while they're locked away there, and they're drunks and everything else. I think it's
a tough, nasty job they do for the most part, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, to me, I'd start them on about 36,000 a year. I think they deserve it.
We had
an awful lot of people. Sorry.
We had a call from a soldier who says that the police get more than him. Basically, it's not fair, and that they are worth less than soldiers. What do you think about that?
Well, I would say to this soldier, I actually think they should be on the same pay. I mean, basically, that soldiers should be earning an awful lot more money. I mean, they're in a seriously dangerous job.
Definitely.
They get a chance of getting shot when they're out in Afghanistan and everything constantly. But, to me, the soldiers' pays are ridiculous. And,
Kevin, listen, we've got to move on, but I appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed. Call again next week and maybe call earlier so we can speak for a little bit longer. Things are a little bit rushed at the end of the show.
Iain Lee.
On BBC WM.
95.6. The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
Now, 08453 009956. I'm very, very excited about this. Apparently, this lot could be getting back together.
You really got me going. You got me so I don't know what I'm doing. As long as I gaze on Waterloo sunset, I am in paradise. I'm not dumb, but I can't understand why she walk like a woman but talk like a man.
Come on. Fantastic. The Kinks. They could be getting back together for their 50th anniversary. The group's frontman, Ray Davies, who's now 69, says the three surviving members of the original lineup are hoping to reform to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the release of their first album. Well, would you be excited if the Kinks got back together? Which bands would you like to see? And which bands should never have got back together? You've got 5 minutes. Well, you've got 8 minutes. If you want to give me a call, I'd do it now. 08453 009956. Nick Hastad from Uncut Magazine wrote this month's cover story, interviewing all surviving members of the band. He also wrote the cracking book, You Really Got Me, The Story of the Kinks. Morning, Nick.
Hello, Iain.
Nick, I've read your book, and it's a wonderful read, so thank you very much for writing it. How did you get into the Kinks? Why are you such a big fan?
Well, I got into them when I was a teenager. I just going through the racks and saw a greatest hits, and I couldn't believe that all of these songs were actually by the Kinks. Some of those ones you just played, and then just got deeper and deeper into it. But there's a humanity to them, I think, sort of fragility that isn't in some of the other bands of their era, and real beauty to some of the songs, as well as those hard rocking, You Really Got Me type ones.
Do you think they could still do it? I'll tell you why. I've interviewed both the Davis brothers, and Ray was as miserable as you'd expect him to be. And Dave, yeah, it can do, until I told him I once lived in Muswell Hill, and then we bonded. And Dave, his brother, the guitarist, he's not very well. He's had a stroke, or at least one stroke. He doesn't walk very well. I can't see him playing the guitar particularly well. Could they still do it?
I think so, because the key to all of this is that Dave started playing again last year for the first time since his stroke in 2004.
Oh, fantastic.
So he's been playing up down the east coast of America, and it's been going pretty well, apparently. And I met him in November, and he looked fitter and hipper and healthier than he did when I met him 10 years ago. So I think physically they can do it. Emotionally, I think they might be able to do it. Ray says it's as close as it's ever been to happening. And my feeling is it's still nothing certain, but I think there's a good chance that there could be the first Kinks gig in 18 years this year.
There was talk of them doing it a few years ago, wasn't there? And then Peter Quaife died, and that kind of sort of knocked that one on the head, the bass player.
And also Dave's been reluctant to do it, and I think probably the fact that he hadn't played in so long also perhaps took some confidence out of him. It was Dave's idea this time, and Ray's definitely keen. Ray's got firm plans in place, I think, for how he'd like a gig to go. And Dave's had cold feet since, but the last I know is Ray and Dave both had Dave Davis, of course, the great guitarist of the Kinks, had a vegetarian curry a couple of days ago, and it all went very well. So
it will be very. Have you ever seen the Kinks live?
I never did, and they were playing till '96, so it's remiss. I've seen Ray many times. It's ironic in a way that when the Kinks were playing up and down the country in the early 90s, people didn't pay them much mind, but now there's great excitement about the idea of them coming back.
I saw them in about 1989, I think it was, at the Alexandra Palace, and it was fantastic. And then I saw them. I saw that they were playing a few years later at the Forum, and I thought, do you know what? I can't be bothered. They'll be around forever. And they split up shortly after that. There are some bands, aren't there, Nick, who just shouldn't get back together. I cited the example of the Beatles in the mid-90s when they recorded those dreadful John Lennon songs. That was a mistake, wasn't it?
Yeah, I quite like Free as a Bird, actually, but it wasn't...
I quite like it, but it's a stinker in the great scheme of things. In the Beatles canon.
Yeah, it's not the best. I think the key to it is if there is some decent new work to go with it. I mean, Ray and Dave both want to... There'd be something fresh to this, for it not just to be nostalgia. And I think if you look at reunions recently by a couple of West Midlands bands, and when Black Sabbath have come back with a really strong new album, that feels legitimate when they go out on the road. Then you've got the Specials, who froze their main songwriter Jerry Dammers out, who wanted to do new work, and just were a nostalgia act a lot of people enjoyed, but there's no future to that, really. I think the Kinks want to do something a bit more honourable if they do come back.
And they could make a fortune out of this, couldn't they?
They could, but I don't think they will. Not nearly as much. I mean, Dave was saying to me that people have been saying to him that, it'd be great if you and Ray just play the O2 or somewhere, or Madison Square Garden. And he said the thought of that just filled him with despair. I think they'll do somewhere more intimate, more interesting. It won't be a big money hoovering gig at the O2 like the Stones did last year. And it probably won't be a tour. I reckon they'll just play one or two... If they did it, I reckon they would do one or two gigs in London, somewhere not enormous, and then see how it went from there.
And how do you get on with them?
Sorry, just one thing that Dave did say to me. He said,
yeah, go on.
He said, minus the expletives, he said, I don't want to see the legacy of the Kinks soured by two miserable old men doing it for the money. It's going to sour the whole magic if it's not done with pure intent. Why break the spell when I spent most of my life trying to support that magic? So I really don't think they will do it for the money, although, as Dave said, it would be nice to have some. I think they'll be, it'll be done for better reasons if it does happen.
We mentioned Ray being grumpy. That's kind of his persona, and anyone who's interviewed with him has probably struggled. How do you get on with them, and what did they think of your book?
Well, Ray hasn't read it. I don't think either of them read it, actually, and it's always... I mean, they're both in it a lot, because I've interviewed them a great deal over the last 10 years, so a lot of it is really from their point of view. You always sort of worry that there'll be something they'll really hate, and the legal writs will start flying. So in a way, I'm not, foisting it on them. But I've always got on well with both of them. I mean, Ray has different moods, but he can be extremely charming if you just hang around long enough. And Dave is always pretty, or usually pretty up and open sort of bloke. So I like them. I think
good.
I'm possibly like
I'm
me.
glad you do. I'm glad. And thank you for writing the book, Nick. It's lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much, Nick Casted from Uncut, who's written "You Really Got Me," the story of the Kinks. Let's just go through a couple of texts that I may have missed during the show. Black Sabbath were brill at the NEC in December, says Helen in Brown Hills. Now, see, Black Sabbath, let's be honest, Ozzy Osbourne is a wreck. That man should be dead. The amount of drugs that he has pumped into his body throughout the years. So if Ozzy Osbourne can perform and front a band and do a half-decent show, then I'm pretty sure the Kinks could do it. And Jean has texted in saying, Penelope Keith, this is on the New Year's honours list. Penelope Keith does a lot for charity. That's why she got a reward and an honour. And I saw Ray Davies on New Year on the TV. He was rubbish. Now, I'm sure Penelope Keith does a lot for charity, but there are civilians, in inverted commas, who do a lot more hands-on work and deserve rewards and honours and recognition. It's something we may come back to over the coming weeks, the honours list, and whether it's an old-fashioned, outdated concept. That's it. That's your lot. You can email me during the week, iain.lee@bbc.co.uk. I will be here every Saturday morning between 9 and 12. Time for me to shut up now, and Daz will take over. Until next week, from me, ta-ta.
The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
BBC WM 95.6.
Afternoon, how you doing? It's time now then to begin our build-up to all of today's big games. Early kick-off with me, Daz Hale, is on the way in a few moments. But first on BBC WM at midday...